Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Rocky Mountain NetSuite user group meeting, our first one of 2023. We're very excited today. We have a great presentation lined up for you. So here's our agenda for the morning. And let's just make sure, let's see, I am screen sharing, we are recording. Okay. So we're going to have our welcome and general business for about the first 20 minutes. We're also going to have our member announcements. At that point in time, when we do our member announcements, we'll give you the opportunity to either unmute yourself and announce a job opening, or if you're looking for some work related to NetSuite or anything that's kind of related to the world of NetSuite and announcements with you or your company. So that'll be coming up here in just a few minutes. Then after our main welcome and general business, we're going to hear from our meeting sponsor today, NetGain. After that, we'll have our main presentation, Save Searches. It'll be presented by IB Stottlemyer from Oracle NetSuite. Very happy to have him with us today. And then we'll have some tips and tricks for 15 minutes after that. And then our open forum for however long we go. We can go up until noon. Sometimes it's a little bit shorter. I think we have a pretty big group today, so hopefully we'll get a lot of good activity in that open forum. That open forum session is designed for you to be able to ask the group any question or challenge that you have, see if anybody else is having the same type of challenge or problem. That open forum is not really designed for the board members to be answering everything. It's as a group we can come together and just kind of discuss some issues that people are having and see if we can find some solutions, or at least point you in the right direction. Okay, so let's get moving here. So first of all, I want to talk about the membership to our user group. Membership is free. You can register at RMNSUG.org. When you register, that guarantees that you get notification of upcoming meetings and events. You also get LinkedIn forum access, and I'll talk about that here in a minute. We have CPE credits available. And today we have 2 credits for this meeting. We will announce those, the check-in information and checkout information before and after the main presentation. If you are not a member, please sign up. That ensures that you get the emails and notifications that we send out from time to time. Where to find us? We have a website. It is RMNSUG.org. We also have a YouTube channel. This is where we post all of our meeting recordings. We do have all of our meetings recorded and posted from the last approximately 8 years. We've done 6 meetings a year for that whole time. So we have lots of information out there, lots of meeting recordings that you can go back and review at any time. It's free, no access, special access required. It's all on our website, also on our YouTube channel. We have our LinkedIn forum. Our LinkedIn forum is a closed group. We do that to make sure that it doesn't become spammy, so that there's not a lot of advertising on it. We do restrict any advertising on our LinkedIn user group to people who have, or I'm sorry, companies who have sponsored our meetings, but there's a limit there as well. The goal of the group is to ask questions, post job openings, follow up with meeting events or meeting questions and answers and stuff like that. So I also want to point out on our website, all of our previous meeting recordings are here. We have all of the YouTube recordings posted on here. And then we also post the slide decks for our meetings, and they are there and available for you to download and review at any point in time. The website is rmnsug.org/posts. And I get this question all the time. Are your meetings available afterwards? And the answer is yes, they are always available on our website. So if you know of a colleague or somebody that can't attend today, then you can make sure that they know they just go to our website and all of our meeting content is there. RMNSUG happy hours. So we had our first successful happy hour last fall. I think it was October. I don't remember the exact date, but but it was really great. We had a really great turnout. It's for a local meetup here in the Denver metro area. This last one we did was in the south, kind of south DTC area. We're going to have another meetup coming in. We're planning on mid-April, and we're kind of looking at the northwest end of town, somewhere out there. We're going to try and do these happy hours once a quarter, and we're going to move them around town. So if you have any recommendations of a good venue that we can meet at, we're always looking to do some catering, some adult beverages, stuff like that, so that we can meet up, have a happy hour, network, see people that we haven't seen in a long time, talk about NetSuite or not talk about NetSuite. But it's a great time, and it's a great way to kind of keep connected. So stay tuned. We're going to announce that coming up here, hopefully for mid-April. At this point, I'd like to give everybody the opportunity to make a member announcement. You are welcome to unmute yourself for your announcement. You can also post them in the chat window, and I can read them off for you. And then if you do have an announcement, also please make sure you post that on our LinkedIn forum. And again, on our LinkedIn forum is closed, so you have to be a member to be granted access to the LinkedIn forum. But all you have to do to become a member is sign up on our website at that URL that I showed earlier. So I'm going to pause for a moment and let anybody unmute themselves, make an announcement, or post it in the chat window, and I will read off that announcement. Any announcements? Any job openings? Anybody looking for? Okay, well, if there's no, okay.
Yes, sorry.
Okay, go ahead.
I would love another position in NetSuite. I'm currently basically a power user, but I'm looking to transition into an admin role. So yeah, my name is Dan Raderman. I'll post in the LinkedIn forum as well with my resume and stuff. But
excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well,
Nice.
NetSuite skills are highly sought after, so this is the right place to announce that. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hi, this is Pierre Tremblay, accounting manager at Eco Products. We're currently seeking to hire a senior accountant as well as an AR clerk. We have job postings on LinkedIn and the internal Novalex website. So if anyone's interested or knows anyone, a great candidate, please let me know or apply directly to the job. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you.
Sorry, could you say the name of that company one more time? I'm sorry.
Sure. It's Eco Products. It's a subsidiary of Novalex.
I'm just going to post that name in the chat window there.
Yeah, I can do that. Sure.
Yeah, I've
Kim
got an
Williams.
announcement real quick.
Sure.
My name is Sterling, and I am with a NetSuite partner called Nuage, and kind of twofold on the announcement side. We are hiring NetSuite consultants right now, and I will throw my contact info in the chat. And we're also rolling out a new product this year that helps with process mapping and then timing out those processes within NetSuite and providing recommendations on how to improve and make those processes more efficient. Some pretty cool stuff going on. So just wanted to throw my contact in the chat in case there's anyone looking for a job or anyone interested in discussing that new tool.
Perfect. Thank you for that. Kim Williamson noted she has a client looking for a strong NetSuite senior accountant located in Lakewood. You can reply directly to Kim if you'd like. And then Debbie in the chat window, we are looking for an accounting clerk, AR and AP. Okay. Last chance for announcements. Go ahead.
Hi, this is Jen, everyone from RF Smart. Hope you're doing well. We have a lot of NetSuite openings. I'm not sure if you're familiar with our product or not, but we've been in the business for 40 years and we specialize in supply chain. I will go ahead and put the link to our openings. And if you have any questions or if you want me to connect you with somebody to learn more about a position in advance, I'd happy to do that. My role here is I work with our partners and making sure that our partners are set up for success when they sell NetSuite and RF Smart. So I'll put that in the chat. Thanks.
Great. Thanks, Jen. All right. Any other announcements? Last chance.
I'll throw my name in the hat. I'm Donna Hall. I have been following some of these programs because I am learning all about NetSuite. I do have a strong business background. I was self-employed for about 20 years. I'm very intrigued with the NetSuite program. I did get my first certification. I'm working on my second, but I'm looking to break into the industry. So I will be checking out some of the contacts that are going up on that chat board now.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to move on at this point. If you have any other announcements, please feel free to post them in the meeting chat window and then also on our LinkedIn forum. Our LinkedIn forum, you can find it on, well, actually, I think I have a slide on that. So hang on just a second. Okay, so we're going to move on. So I'd like to take just a minute to introduce the board of directors for the Rocky Mountain NetSuite user group. We have been, this user group, it was the first NetSuite user group. We are the largest user group in the country, probably the world. We have participants and members from all over the country and the world. And this group right here, we work hard to bring this user group to you and the knowledge and the networking capabilities. So I just want to take a minute to introduce everybody and say thank you to the board. So first of all, in the upper left-hand corner, that's me. I'm Corey Anderson. I'm the president of the user group. I'm an independent NetSuite and Celigo consultant. Then we have our sponsorship and member chair, Margie Cominos of PlantScan Corporation. Then we have our communications chair, Mike Kackline from Vertifor. Our speaker chair, Peggy Evleth from RSM US. And then our treasurer, Dana Larson of Dana Larson Consulting, also an independent consultant. So thank you to the board for everything that you do and helping to keep this user group running year after year. So meeting evaluations, we do send out an evaluation survey same day as the meetings. Please take a few moments to fill that out and let us know how we're doing. We do read and act on the feedback from those evaluations. Some of the most valuable feedback that we get from those is what type of content you'd like to see in the future. We do have a rotating schedule of content, but we have slots for to be determined type topics. And so we're always looking for what everybody wants to hear about or learn more about in NetSuite. So please take a minute to fill out those evaluations. So as a reminder, please use the same email to RSVP as the email that you received our meeting invites. We try to maintain individual member records. We do have a NetSuite production account that we use to run the user group. And if we have duplicate customer records, it's kind of hard to maintain that. If you sign up with duplicate email or different email addresses, you'll get multiple emails from us. So if you did receive an invite to the meeting with different email addresses, you can email rsvp@rmnsug.org and have the correct email addresses inactivated or the incorrect ones. Then you can provide the company name in which email should be inactivated. So we just try and keep a clean member records in our NetSuite account. So meeting sponsorship, membership to the user group is free. Cost of the meetings is supported by 2 levels of sponsorship. We have Suite App sponsors and consulting sponsors. Suite App sponsors must be available through suiteapp.com. Consulting sponsors must offer NetSuite consulting services and have certified NetSuite consultants on staff. If you or your company is interested in sponsoring a meeting, you can learn more and sign up for either sponsorship type at rmnsug.org/sponsorship. And all of the details of sponsorship are listed there. Upcoming meetings. So this is our plan for 2023. For our March meeting, we're going to do a procure to pay topic. I don't think we've done that one before, so that'll be a new one for us. That should be good. And then in May 2023, we're going to have our projects, otherwise known as SRP, and that'll be presented by a NetSuite expert from Oracle NetSuite on projects. We've never done a projects meeting like this before, so excited about that one. Then in July, we're coming back around. This is one of our normally scheduled meetings, our accounting spotlight, that will most likely be presented by our very own Dana Larson, who is a NetSuite and accounting guru. Then in September, we'll have our inventory. We're going to do a little bit of a potpourri meeting there. So we're going to have kind of a mix and mash of different inventory related topics. And so we don't know all the details around that yet, but that's what's coming. It'll be all around inventory. And then in November, Cash 360, plus other cash related topics. We've done a meeting in the past all about cash and cash related topics. We wanted to do the Cash 360 last year, but then it was postponed. And so now it is out and available. So we're planning on doing a meeting on that in November. CPE credits. So there are two CPE credits available for today's meeting. Certificates will be issued within 15 days after training. If you have any problems with your CPE credits, you can email info@rmnsug.org. And our CPE credits are sponsored by Eide Bailly. So CPE and attendance credits. To receive CPE credit for attending today's session, you must sign in and out of the session using code words. The facilitator, me, will provide the first code word at the start of the session and then provide you a checkout code word once the session is complete. You can log in with your computer, click the link that was provided to you in the email that was sent out Monday evening. You can fill out the information and enter the check-in and checkout code words. We have not given the check-in code word yet. We will do that at the very beginning of the main presentation at about 9 a.m. I'd like to take a minute to say thank you to our Suite app sponsor, NetGain. NetGain has been supporting the user group for several years now, and we appreciate your ongoing and continued support. And thank you. So at this point, I'd like to turn it over to Becca Smith from NetGain, and she's going to take a few minutes to tell you about NetGain.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Corey. So I'm going to share my screen just so that we don't have to look at nothing. So this is NetGain. I'm Becca Smith. I'm a CPA. I work at NetGain as a solutions architect. So I essentially am a technical resource on the sales side. And NetGain really focuses on creating apps that sit within your NetSuite ERP. So we have a multitude of apps. I'm going to go over them briefly today, and also, if we have time, show a couple of screenshots just so you can get a feel for what they feel like within NetSuite. They are fully embedded. But before I get into our product, I do want to offer all of you the chance to enter a raffle. So we are sponsoring a raffle. We have 4 $50 Amazon gift cards. So there is that QR code on the screen. If you pull up your camera on your phone, you should be taken directly to our website where you can enter your information to enter that raffle. And then you will also be able to receive a free ASC 842 blueprint guide. And then I also have that link here at the bottom, and we're going to put it in the chat. Oh, that's not what I meant to do. I'm going to leave the QR code there for 1 second while I just talk about why we're providing an ASC 842 guide. That is because our main app that we actually started with is a lease accounting app. So if you are familiar, ASC 842 is in effect, and all companies need to be compliant as of this last year, 2022. And so we have an app that sits directly within your NetSuite account, where you're able to put in your lease information and then have the entire schedule generated for you. We connect to AP so that you can do your billing. We do have a lessor app as well. So if you are on the other side of that and you lease out products, that will connect to your invoicing. We have really robust reporting. All of your journal entries post directly to NetSuite. There's a lot of benefits of being a fully embedded app. And so I just kind of wanted to point out some of those while we sit here. So hopefully you've had a chance to enter into the raffle. I am going to go to this next slide here. So these are the products that NetGain has. And if you missed that chance at that raffle, we are going to put that link in the chat. Don't worry. So a couple of our products, like I was just talking about, NetLease was our first product. This is the one where we have a real focus on making sure that your lease accounting is compliant with the new standards. And then the lessor is going to be kind of the mirror image of that one. But then we also have a net asset product. This one's really popular with clients, especially when they do have a higher volume of assets. It's a full replacement for FAM, and it sits again directly within NetSuite. We've got a really cool CIP clearing account functionality there, so that you can build or you can create assets and build up assets directly from your bills. We also have really fantastic reporting in that product. We have a roll forward report that sits directly within NetSuite and is interactive, similar to your reporting in NetSuite that you're already familiar with. So there's a lot of benefits there. We also have Net Loan, which is going to be a loan tracking software. So we can do the we can do the borrower, the lender, or the intercompany on that. So that's super helpful, especially if you have those loans, high volume, low volume. We work with all types of companies. NetClose is our newest product. So NetClose is a close system that sits again within NetSuite. That's going to help you track tasks, reconciliations. If you're familiar with amortizations in NetSuite, we have the ability to do amortizations through NetClose. You can create it directly off of your journal, or really, yeah, anything, journals, bills, etc. And then you have the ability to modify and write off those amortizations. So clients really like that. And then we also just added a really robust flux analysis to NetClose, so that you're able to have your flux comparisons again within NetSuite and add comments, etc. there. So that's a really cool piece of that product. And then Net Revenue is going to be our newest product. So this is being released this year. We are still working on that one, but just wanted to kind of tease that that is the next product that we are planning to release. We also have a small suite app called Shared Transactions. If you are using vendor bills and you know that that is being deprecated, or if you are looking for a solution that is more robust than shared vendor bills, we have a Shared Transactions suite app that you can download, again, straight from the suite app marketplace. And that is going to allow you to do allocations based off of bills, journals, and then some other kind of expense type transactions inside of NetSuite. Really flexible, you can use templates, etc. And there's a free version that you can download within your Sandbox account. So we've had a lot of feedback that clients are really liking that product and playing with it in their Sandbox. So wanted to let you guys know about that. That's kind of NetGain. We just continue to build more and more apps as we get more and more feedback about things that people are looking for. So again, all fully embedded within NetSuite. So I want to show you what that actually looks like. So obviously fully native, hopefully you're familiar with that, but I'm actually going to switch over to this screen. This is that raffle screen. So hopefully you have seen this. Just first, last name, company name, email, and then we will enter you into that raffle. So I wanted to show that really quick. But what our products look like, I've got, I think, about 5 more minutes. And I know I talk really fast, so hopefully it's not too fast for you guys. But our products, again, sit directly within NetSuite. So you download that Suite app, and then you're going to have that functionality that downloads here into the system. You're going to have a lot of familiar pieces like a dashboard. You're going to have different save searches. We utilize save searches all the time. So I actually love that that's what we're talking about today, because there is a lot that you can do with save searches. And one of the benefits of having our products sit within NetSuite is that I have a list of records here in the system now, right? So with the leasing product, I have a list of leases. With the asset product, a list of assets. And then I can use save searches to then go in and really drill into the information here and make sure that I am providing what matters. So we use those all the time, big fan. As far as what our product looks like, you can kind of see that was a list of leases. This is a lease record. It's a really robust program, so there's a lot going on. I cannot possibly cover it all. But the main pieces I want to show is that one of the benefits here is our product is going to let you put in the information that matters, that start date, the end date, the discount rate, any prepaids, initial direct costs. And then we generate this entire schedule for you. So that's really kind of the value add of using just a software in general, is that it's going to take the accounting requirement off of your accounting team and basically create this lease liability right of use asset here in the system. We create the entire schedule for you upfront, and then you're able to then go and run your journal entries here directly from NetLease. We provide the ability to do everything in mass, billing, transferring billing, like I talked about, being able to connect to your AP and have bills created off of the payment scheduled within your lease. That's another really handy feature. And then again, just getting into some of the benefits of NetSuite, you have the ability to have related records, different modifications, allocations, you'll be able to see directly from this record, and then always system notes so that you can see the history of anything being changed. So I wanted to show that on Net Lease. Another fun thing I just wanted to show was within Net Close. So this is, again, our close software. We have tasks, reconciliations, accruals, amortizations, and some of the boards that we have in here are way more interactive than you're used to, which is awesome. So one of those pieces is this task board, basically the ability to have all of your tasks associated with your close here within NetSuite. You can open these up and interact with them. You can leave comments at people and send them email notifications. You've got those due dates, different statuses. And then this is actually an interactive Kanban board that you can drag and drop with. So that's kind of just a little bit of a taste of what our products look like, feel like. There's a lot that we offer, and so always happy to set up a demo. You can reach out to us. Our website is that NetGain website that you were on for the Rocky Mountain user group raffle. So you can always go to netgain.tech. I'm often the person talking in video, so you can watch videos of me demoing products, or you can always reach out to our AE team as well. Okay, well, I want to make sure I don't go over time because I know we've got a lot to cover with our presentation today. So yeah, I think I will probably just wrap it up at that.
Excellent.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Becca, and thanks again, NetGain, for sponsoring the user group. I have posted the raffle URL link in the chat window there. I'll post it again a little bit later on as well. So before we get into our main presentation, I just want to share two other things. So here, this is our website. This is where you can see all of our previous meeting recordings. For example, here's the one that we did in November on supply chain process and inventory management. You can see, you can watch the video right here. Here's the slide decks that you can download and use for reference later on. Here was our meeting from right before that. If you have a topic that you're looking for, you can come to this search box and you can just search for something. If you search for it, we've probably done something on it before. Our Suite Analytics presentations, we've done that 2 times before. So anyway, this is a resource for you and your team and your company and anybody interested in NetSuite to come and learn about NetSuite and everything that we've done in the past. I also wanted to show you real quick our LinkedIn user group. This is our user group. So you can, or I'm sorry, our user group forum. So you can come in here, you can post questions, answers, announcements, anything else there. And if you're in LinkedIn, you can just search for Rocky Mountain NetSuite user group, or you can go to this URL right here, and that'll take you directly to it. So I am going to switch my screen. And so now we're going to do our check-in code word. And I think, yep, there we go. So here's our CPE check-in code word. And I need to get the URL to post in the chat window. So excuse me just a moment. I'm going to bring that back up here in just a minute. Okay, so here's our CPE check-in. In the chat window, there's the link to do your check-in code word. I'm going to leave that up for just another minute. And then at that point, we'll turn it over to our main presentation. Check-in code word is members. Okay. At this point, I will stop sharing. I'm going to turn it over, and I'm very pleased to introduce our speaker today. Our speaker is IB Stottlemyer from Oracle NetSuite. He is one of the primary consultants. I'll let you do your own introduction, IB, but we're very happy to have you here. So thank you for being here today.
Hey, can everyone hear me okay? Just making sure I come across. Good morning, everyone. I'm glad to be here. First of all, let me just say one thing. I've been to Oracle user groups before, especially a lot of them down in Florida, where I lived for a long time. I've been at Oracle for 22 years. So you guys are really organized. I love your presentation. I love the fact that you're bringing in education things. It's really exciting to see what's going on. So today, what I wanted to do with you, I'm just IB. Everybody calls me IB at NetSuite, and Been there 7 years. I transferred from Oracle into NetSuite in 2016 because I wanted to be in the cloud. My background at Oracle is data warehousing and analytics, right? Business intelligence. I worked with OBIEE, did a lot of the on-premises stuff. And now that Oracle's moved that into the cloud, I work with the new data warehouse in NetSuite. If you guys would ever like to have an overview of that or anything, I'd be more than happy to come back and be able to talk about that new product feature. But let's go ahead and get started on what we want to talk about, and that is going to be saved searches. What was brought up to me was that you guys are a mixed group as far as talent, experience, things like that. So I was asked to start off at a walk and kind of walk us through a saved search, the concepts of it, but then ramp that up and get us into the various aspects of it, alerts, functions, advanced formulas, things like that. So we want to talk to you about a couple of things. There's only a lot, or so much we can do in 2 hours. So let's go ahead and let's get started. So first things first, let me share my screen and we'll bring up the NetSuite here. Okay, so what we're going to do is I have an account that I use for doing analytics training. So I'm just in that account. So it's really simplified. You can see one thing right up front, though, is that I'm a big fan of using shortcuts to be able to get back to my reports and searches, because we do have on the reports portal, we have a recent reports. But one of the things that you always notice about your searches and your reporting is we never have them on recent records. So usually if I'm serious enough that I think we're going to run it twice, I will usually make a shortcut for it. And I'll use dashboard tile sometimes with the URL in it. But typically, I will strongly recommend that you have come up with some kind of a process for this, for being able to get back to your searches. And the reason for that is just that when you go into save searches, it becomes horrendous, a horrendous mass of Mary's favorite search, Bill's 001, you know, and you get a lot of this. And a lot of people will go into a search, change one thing in it and save it again. So we're going to talk a little bit about how to manage your searches, how an admin can stay on top of it and things like that. But let's get started. What we will do is first of all, if you're ever going to do a save search, make sure you start it from here. This is the best place to start a save search from, is your create new button. There's many ways into a save search. And a lot of times what you'll run into, if you go through transactions management and these other entry points, a lot of times you'll get a front end screen, right? Where it has like its own active filters that you can just type in and then proceed with the rest of the search. We're talking about being able to get to full access of a construction of all of our searches. And the only one across all these different menus, the only one that really guarantees it 100% each time is putting save search on your create new. Now, something else you have to do before, if you're really serious about analytics and save searches, there's 2 features you have to set in your user preferences. And I'd like to get rid of those right up front. So let's make sure that you guys are configured for this properly. The first thing is it doesn't impact the actual search itself as much as being able to ascertain your field names for your formulas. So this show internal IDs does a lot more than show the ID column on lists. What this does, this show internal IDs allows us, for those of you who may not know, let's say, for example, I had a formula in my search that if this checkbox was true, I was going to do one thing. If it was false, I'm going to do another. So how do I get that field name? And of course, showing internal IDs, what it'll do is take the field name and place it on any of the labels. So you'll be able to see that. If you don't have that box checked, you won't be able to get the field name from this source. This is a real quick source to get it. And it's all driven by that show internal IDs. If you have that unchecked, you can open up all the help you want on all your values and labels, and it'll never give you the field name. The second thing that you need to set, that's under the general tab. The second thing that you need to pay attention to is analytics over here. And you need to make sure that you have show list when only one result. Now, this is NetSuite's idea of a great thing. This is NetSuite's idea. Oh, I noticed you ran a search and it came back with only one invoice. So why don't I go ahead and open the invoice for you? And we don't want that. And the reason we don't want that is A, we're capable of clicking on it and opening it ourselves. And B, what we do is in save searches, when you create a custom KPI, okay, a custom KPI, you know what that is? A one-line search. And if that one-line search consisted of just one transaction, like I was looking for sales orders greater than $1 million. So it brings back one. I don't want to have it open because it's supposed to be my KPI. So I want it to stay closed. Never try to open it, it'll crash your KPIs. So make sure you have that one checked. Those two are the ones that's going to keep your head above water when you're out here trying to do all this. The other things are what's going to be personal for you, like in your global search and things like that. That's fine. The other thing I recommend is that you by default, and this has nothing to do with searches, but reports, always say that you want the report title and then display the report descriptions, because you might have something in there about your sort or filter order. I always check those, and then the report itself allows you to turn them off. So anytime you run the report, you can say, don't show me the title, don't do this. It's pretty important on getting the information about your report. Now, one other thing, when you are choosing date ranges, right? A lot of times NetSuite will suggest predefined date ranges. And you'll look over here, reporting by period. And this often isn't explained adequately. What it is that if you show all reports and then you go to a search or you go to a report and you try to set the date range and you use their selectors, they're all going to be period selectors. It's always going to be like quarter. It's always going to be like half. It's going to be year. It's going to be those things. So you get the real fun ones when you actually open it up a little bit. So one of the things you might consider, most of us do have the financials only, which means you're only going to see periods only when you're looking at an income statement or a balance sheet. I usually do never, because I like all the choices. I like 5 days ago. I like 7 days from now. I like those choices. And so you get a lot more robust choices in your date ranges, depending upon how you have this configured. Okay, enough said about that. All right, so I'm going to go back here. I'm going to change it to financials only. And actually, that's only for the budget and the actual type income statements is where you need to have the period only. Anyway, so I wanted to show you those two things. One other thing I want to tell you about that'll cut down on the number of searches that get generated. A lot of times people go out and run a search that they use to close the month end, or they do something, and now they're working on one of their subsidiaries. So what they'll do is they'll go into the search, they'll go into the report, and they'll modify the criteria, and they'll say for subsidiary equals US or subsidiary equals Hong Kong or whatever. And then that messes up the search. They usually save it. They usually do whatever and save it as a different name. They really didn't have to do that. Whenever you want to restrict and go in and modify criteria, if the criteria is in a class or a subsidiary or something, what you might want to consider is coming into restrict view. What restrict view will do, these are all your user preferences. What restrict view does is if I come in here and say that right now I only want to see Canada, that's all I want to see. This effectively takes everything in the pipe coming down from the cloud and removes it. So you only see Canada. So now if I go look at my search and go look at my reports, they'll automatically be filtered that way, right? There's no data coming for those things. So, and it's so powerful on restriction that's why it even tells you that your restrictions will be restored upon next login, your normal ones, right? So all these go away in case you forget it. This saves so much time in modifying that month-end report, those two searches that you use for finding stuff. When you only want to look in those areas, departments, divisions, locations, warehouses, classes like that, set it here, and it'll go ahead and modify your search for you, and you won't have to go in and mess it up. And you'll know when you're looking at invoices, you're only looking at invoices from Canada. So that's something you want to consider to keep you from modifying unnecessarily the searches. Now let's go in, since we talked about the two settings that you needed in your preferences, and you've went and checked those. Let's go in then and see what creating a saved search involves. First of all, on the creation of a saved search, that's fine. I don't need to save anything here. All right, so the thing about, they'll tell you that you got all these search types. You don't. There's only two search types. There's only two. There is, down here, you have transaction, and then there's everything else. Okay, all the rest of that stuff is the same. It's just transaction is different. And you have to understand when you're doing a save search and transactions, right? You have to consider the way the transaction is built and stored. The transaction typically of all of our 4 record types, the transaction has the header information record type and the detail information record type. So what that means to us is that we have to pay extra attention to our criteria selection and things like that when we're considering doing a transactional search. All other searches, we don't have to worry about it. So let's just take a look and start with the one that we have to consider the most when we're starting a search. So the search type will be transaction, and typically there will always be 3 criteria, usually, very high percentage rate. There'll be 3 criteria almost on every transactional search that you do. So let's go ahead and just briefly talk about those. Now, criteria is where you, for those of you that are brand new into NetSuite, criteria is what we're doing is that we're hoarding our records. We're going out into that big dust bowl of database, and we're going to bring in records that only meet certain criteria. So that's what we're setting here to do our record selection. Now, this can also be done in available filters, and I'm going to address that shortly. But what I'm going to do is talk about the embedded criteria that will make up the metadata of this search. So what you'll see typically is that you'll see type. Why? Because in a transactional search, there's always all these types. There's purchase order, there's journal entry, there's discount, there's credit, there's cash sale. There's all these different types. So when you're doing a transactional search, you just don't want to see all the transaction types. You want to look for a specific type. So you'll be using that. Now, just to get us through the demonstration, I'm just going to go ahead and say it's any of the type of, now you can use the list or you can start typing, and then it'll bring up your closest match. So we'll say invoice or cash sale. And so we're looking for revenue recognition, right? So in other words, now that I have an invoice, I want to make sure it's a paid invoice because I want to see what money I actually have in the bank. So that's usually going to require yet another setting. So once you'll select your criteria for the record type, the transaction type, then you'll always need a status. You're always going to need a status because I want to see invoices that are either partially paid or paid, right? That's what I want to see. I don't want to see any other types. I want to see how much cash I have my hands on. So what we're going to do is we're going to go in there and then we could look for the types, right? We could come through here and do that. Or since I've been running searches for quite some time, I can say invoice, then come down here and say paid in full. And then I can say cash sale. And I know a status is deposited and I know a status is not deposited, right? So now this is really cash recognition, right? This is paid in full, sales deposited, that thing, that type. Okay, you would be doing this for whatever you want. Purchase orders unapplied, purchase orders that are unapproved. You might be out there looking for this. Now, in your transactional search, a must is called mainline. You have to have mainline in a transactional search. It was funny, I was teaching last week at a Chicago open thing for users. And I brought up this screen and they said, what type search is that? And I said, what do you see on there? Because if you see mainline, you know it's a transactional search right away. And they're going like, oh yeah, I should have known that. But yeah, mainline is used because what this is that it wants to know whether you want to go looking at the header or you want to go looking at the detail in the footer, or whether you want to have both. Now, there's only certain times you'll have both. I'm going to show you one of those searches today. Hopefully we'll have time to show you a good case of when you use both. But most times you're out there saying, I want to sum up and find out how much each of my customers owes me. So you'll want to look at the header, right? Pay this amount. You owe this much. 30 days late, this much. So you'll be looking at the header to get that information. So you'll say mainline is true. If you're out there and you say amount and you're looking at no, now you're looking at every line of that invoice detail. So you'll see all the line items, the service items, the inventory items, the whatever, then you'll have the sales tax, you'll have the shipping, you'll have all that when you're looking. Now, typically when we write a lot of reports, you're always looking at the total amount after all payments have been made, discounts have been taken and everything else. But let's say you're out of balance by $38.27. And you think it's in your sales and you think maybe a sales tax or a shipping didn't get posted or something like that, then you'll want to go searching for that $38 through the line items to find out which line item it was. So you'll have different searches and transactions depending upon what you're trying to do. Now, I'm going to illustrate something today. So I'm going to say right now either, because I want to highlight what mainline actually does. The reason I start with a transactional search, because if you can make a transactional search work, you can make a customer search work, an item search work. It's a piece of cake. It's just here you have to deal with some entities and know what you're dealing with. So here we're just saying mainline is any. Now, rule number one about a search. Rule number one, any criteria fields you have must be in the results. And you say, no, it doesn't. I say, yes, it does. And the reason it has to be, if you ever look at a search, but this one's going to have invoices in it, right? And people are going to be looking, we have more invoices than that. Well, then you should have the status field in there that says paid in full, paid in full, paid in full, cash deposited, cash deposited. If you don't have the status field in there, people will be looking for you like, what are these invoices, right? So a lot of times, anything you use for criteria should be in results. Now let's go to results and talk about that a little bit. First things is that on results, these are the answers that come back from your criteria search. Right? So these are the answers. Now, NetSuite adds on to these. And sometimes I get a question, how comes I got all these custom body fields thrown in at the bottom? And you're going like, how did that happen? Well, it happened because of you. And what that is when you create custom fields, I'll show you just really quick. So if you're in customization, you're going up here and you create a custom field. All right, so we do a transaction body field or something, right? What you're doing is that when you do a new one, let's open that in a new tab. And when you do one, what adds them onto your search list or how they're getting there is that people are coming into the field and what they're doing on the field. Like, let's say I'm creating a new transaction body field right now. And I come in here and I hit this show and list. When you hit show and list, a lot of people think that when I add that and say show and list, that the next time I do a list of these transactions, it will be one of my columns. And that is true up to the maximum common limit, I think of 30 or something. It will add it on. It'll just take your custom column and automatically add it on to searches of that type, right? But you know what else it does? It goes into your search results and adds that field there. So how you're accumulating all those new fields is because people are checking this box. What they should actually do is go to the list and add it there and not check this box, because it's just going to gum up all pretty soon. After you create about 17 custom fields, you're going to go into a search. It's going to have all this Goomba stuff that you don't want. So instead of removing it each time, just go up here and make sure that when you create new custom fields, you don't add it show and list unless you really want it to be there. Okay, so let's go back. That was just those custom fields that you find at the bottom, right? That's how they get there. So what I'd like you to do is a lot of times people will go through and set this up and configure it for themselves. They go, I like that. Notice that what's missing is status, right? So I got to add status because I got type and I got, see if I can do this. STA, there we go. All right. Sometimes if you're typing it, it just gives you a little problem. You guys have been around NetSuite for a while. You understand that totally. So I'm going to take that status and I'm going to move it up next to, let's step off the row, come back to it. And then I'm just going to move it up to type. So I'll see type and status right next to each other. So I'll understand it's invoices, it's paid in full. I'll get all that. The other thing, I don't need account number. I'm not going to do that right now. I don't need a memo field. I'm not going to do that right now. Okay, so you say, well, wait a minute, where's mainline? Mainline's not on there. Yes, it is. Mainline's right here. That's mainline. A lot of people think it's like a wild card. DOS it is, but not here. So what it is that that's going to show you whether that line you're looking at on your results is a main line or not. So that's going to indicate that. Now I'm going to add one more field in just because I want to help teach about mainline and how it works. And so I'm going to add in something called line sequence number. And we'll add that in. Let's just go there and see if I can pop that open real carefully. Line sequence number. You would probably never put this in your search. I just want to do it because it's going to help me illustrate the principle of why mainline is so important. So I'm just going to go ahead and bring that in. Okay, so we have that line sequence number as well as a document number. And also, I'll go ahead and just thin this down a little bit, get rid of period, tax period, a couple of those things. Now, here's something I want to straighten a lot of people out on also, is that they narrow this down and then they come up here and check my preferred search results. Because I thought when I first came in and saw it, I said, that's a good idea. Because now the next time I do a transactional search, it'll bring up what I like. Right? That's what I was thinking. It just made all the sense in the world to me. Do you know what this actually does? What this actually does is that we see these results right here. Whenever you do a global search of invoices, right? So if I go out looking for invoices that start with 3, 4, 5, and it finds more than one, right? Because if it finds one, it'll just drop it. But then you'll get a lot of them and it'll say show more. So when you click on, when you get more than one result in global searches, and it's going to list them for you, these are the columns it's going to use in the global search. Also, if you go into a search portlet and you search for an invoice that starts with 3 or starts with # or does something else, and it finds multiple records in the search portlet, it will also display the results. These columns become your results. So what you're saying is, when you say my preferred search results, what you're saying is these are the results I get in global searches and search portlet results. That's what you're saying. Okay, so that's really what that one does. Now, the other one is that results here has a lot of stuff hidden underneath of it. And the first one is this is where you do your sort order. Whereas in reporting, you had a whole separate tab that took you to your sorts. And here, that's different from reports. Reports, when you sort, you can't get the results on your screen and click on the column heading and have that column resort your report. Doesn't work in reports, but it works in searches. So even though you might set up the 3 columns, ascending or descending, you can just go into a search result, click on that column heading, and it will reorder your search for you. The other thing that you want to pay attention to is that this unrestricted, and just know what it is. First of all, you may never see it. You may be given permission to publish searches, but you are not an administrator, and so you won't see run unrestricted. Run unrestricted allows anybody that you allow access to this search. Okay, they could be, an accounts receivable clerk, and you did a search that shows company weaknesses or something. And if you gave them this search and say run unrestricted, what that does is it doesn't look at their roles, their permissions, right? And so you'll get it running unrestricted. Now, over in reports, that's called access and audience, right? Audience gives you the report, but your role will remove rows. And if you give it access, that won't remove your rows. It just says, I'm going to ignore your role. A lot of people think that that's all covered under audience. Now, let me explain audience. First of all, I like the audience in searches more than I like the audience in reporting. Why? It's this little box right here. This thing is a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing. So what happens is that you might decide that this is a good search for everybody. So you decide that you're going to make it public, and notice that it checks all roles. Now, the main thing I want to tell you here about this is that this is an and I really dislike that. I'd really like to see it being ors, but or you being able to control with a little toggle in here, because it'd be nice if you could say everybody in domestic furniture or in the ERP group can do it. Actually, it's an and. So as soon as you start picking stuff, they have to be that, and that, and that, and that. So be very careful about assigning. Typically, people will use roles for their area. But what's really important is once you've given access to somebody is that allow audience to edit. I love that. So if they take your search and go, I love this search, but it just needs this column and it needs another piece of criteria. And so they go in and do that. What they'll do is they'll just save, right? And they'll save over top of your search. And now you're mad. What do you mean purchase orders? I didn't do purchase orders. So this allows them to go ahead and modify your search, but it will force them to save it as a different name. It won't let them save it as the same name. So this is nice. It allows you to open up your audience a little more, knowing that they're not going to stomp on you and change your favorite searches. So that's pretty important to know. And a lot of people think that it has something to do with roles. Actually, the only thing it has to do with roles, if you want to give it to a role or not, right? That's the only thing. Actually, what roles is up here is what I'm going to talk to you about in just a little bit. And that is going to be the fact that you have the ability for these checkboxes. And these checkboxes a lot of times don't get fully explained to people. So we want to make sure that before we leave today, we have a good understanding of what these checkboxes do. And the other thing that why that's so important is why do they have roles? All roles do is control whether or not the person has access to the checkboxes. So what you're saying here is that you're saying, okay, the AP clerk can use their stuff as a sub list, can use their stuff as a list. They can build a form on it. They can do these things, right? They can make it available to a dashboard. So you're saying, I don't want to give that control to you, right? That, in other words, I'm letting you do some search and do queries and stuff, but no, you're not going to go out and reconfigure our list. You're not going to reconfigure our sub list. You're not going to do that, right? So you got to understand who's doing what, where. And so these checkboxes, not only do they affect how the search is going to interact with the NetSuite application, but they also affect some very powerful changes that you're making. So we're going to go over those, but this here is to restrict the people's capability of using those checkboxes. right? And being able to do these things. So we're going to talk about that. Okay, so we're going to get that done. I'm just skipping a little ahead to cover this audience and roles thing. Now, okay, so what we talked about, first of all, we went into criteria and said that is just your selection criteria. Notice that you can use formulas in here. Now, formulas, if you're brand new to searches, formulas are going to blow your mind, because formulas is going to start with the word F, the letter F for formula. You're going like, really? There's not a button that says create a new formula? No, you just come in here. And what you're responsible for is when you choose a formula type, formula date, formula numeric, formula text, let me explain one thing to you. That type is what the data type of the answer is going to be, what the answer of your formula is going to be. So in other words, if I wanted to subtract the open date of these invoices, the date they were opened, from today's date to find out how many days since opened. Okay, so I'm subtracting 2 dates. So people would naturally come in and say, I'm going to do a date formula. No, you're not. Because when you subtract 2 dates, you get a number. So if I wanted to subtract 2 dates, I would have to do formula numeric, right? You're going to get errors if you say formula date and subtract 2 dates, because the answer is not a date. It's not January 6th. It's going to be 27, right? So you got to pick the answers format, not the data that's in the formula, right? So it's whatever the answer is going to be. If it's going to be a text answer, you have to select text. If it's going to be like you did a string conversion inside your formula from a number to a text, then your formula is a text formula, because the answer is going to be text, even though you put a number in it, right? So remember that. Now you're going to get more on results, because we can filter on a lot more formula types over in results than we can inside of this. But I could set up a criteria that the answer of the subtraction today's date from the open date was going to represent, if it's greater than 0, I want to find that record, right? So I might say today's date minus this greater than 0 would be my formula. And it would go out and only select records that would have that many days since it was open, right? So you can use formulas in your criteria as well. We're going to talk more about formulas, but I just wanted to use that moment to express to you that whenever you select a formula, you're selecting the data type of the answer, not the formula itself. Okay, I beat that dog. We're done. Now, I'm going to show you how to make a KPI before we're done, but I'm going to probably use this search. So I only need to add one more field to it to be able to get a KPI. Okay, so we went out and chose our result fields. We can anytime do preview. But be very careful when you're developing searches, because the preview will lull you to sleep. You will come in here and you will make the most advanced case statement that took you 30 minutes to do, to get it right with the syntax and all the mistakes you made and all the errors. And then all of a sudden the power to your router goes out and you're disconnected and you didn't hit a save. This thing's like word processing back in the 90s. You know what I'm saying? You don't type any more than you want to lose. So when you're working in searches, try to develop a pattern where every now and then you look at your search and say, if I lose this right now, I'll cry. And then you should go ahead and save it, right? Don't keep using the preview button. It is so easy to keep using preview, right? And I do it myself all the time because I'm training and I don't want to keep saving. But I lose one of my demos, it's shame on me. Okay, now when you come up with your search titles, please, guys, to help your admins, to help everything, you should start considering either coming up inside your organization with a naming convention, but at least put your initials in them. There's a couple of times that your search title is really important. One of them is KPIs. Whenever you're doing a search that makes a KPI, make sure KPI is in its name. Otherwise, people will open it up. They'll say, what kind of search is this? All it did was produce a number. And you're going like, that's my KPI search. Leave it alone, right? So normally KPIs, you'll put that in the name somewhere of your search if it's going to be a KPI search. We're going to talk more about that. But at least come up with some plan like your initials. Because when I'm doing demos, I'm going to go out and do IB %. I'm going to find out all my searches. I'm going to do IB %, find all my reports. So I usually put IB somewhere in my report, right? So I'll just do that. And we'll just do a search demo. Now, let me express this right now. See this ID field? This drives me nuts, guys. This ID field If you leave it blank, which NetSuite says, fine, you can leave it blank. You leave that blank, it's going to come up with the weirdest name for your search you've ever found. And I'll tell you where it's really bad is the ID fields and custom objects, like custom tables, custom fields, custom whatever. If you don't name the ID thing, all of a sudden it comes out cust entity 987. Now, let me tell you something. If you use a field in your formula that is custom ent 987, how am I supposed to figure out that that was industry size? How am I supposed to figure that out? So you want to make sure you're kind to other people whenever you're creating something, because guess what? This search might be used in a workflow. Do you know how to use it in a workflow? It uses its ID. It doesn't use its label. It'll never use its label. It'll always use its ID. So you got to come up with an ID. Now, ID has got to be, Suite script compliant. So you can only use lowercase letters, and you have to have an underscore for spaces. But always name it yourself. Always name it yourself. And that way, that's what it's going to be named. And if you use that in a workflow or use it in a formula or reference it as a criteria or a filter, then you have the name. You created it. You didn't let NetSuite do it. Okay. So trans action, whatever. There you go. So I can just have that, right? Just make sure you name it. Don't let NetSuite name it, please. Okay, so we'll just make this one public for giggles for now. Okay, so let's go ahead and hit a preview. Again, we'll see it, but what I wanted to talk to you about was that. Make sure you had that. Let's go, and I would probably go ahead and save now. So I'm going to go ahead and do a save and run. We'll have the basic criteria and everything done. Okay, that's nice that it told me that. I do so many demos that's probably out there 50 times. So all we have to do is come up here and just hit the 999 on that. That'd probably work. All right, so then we got that. Okay, so we'll go ahead and hit save and run again and see if I hit it again. All right, now that's the basics. Let's continue on with this next step. So this is criteria, results. Notice that a couple of things are in here. First of all, I understand when I'm looking at this and I see that I have 43,016 results. I don't have that many invoices. So how did I get that many lines? Well, if you look over here, I got my document number, and then I got line 0. And if you look over here, you see the asterisk. So this is the pay this amount line, right? And then underneath of it, I got line 1. It doesn't have an asterisk. So it's telling me that it's in the details, right? This is line 1. It's floor sanding, no dollars for that. Then line 2 was floor sanding, $5,600 for that. Line 3 was the net for floor sanding. It was $5,600. Do you see why when you mix mainline and you do subtotals and totals, they're all going to be wrong? You can't mix header and details together in the same report and mean anything. The other thing is that it may turn off your inline editing. You'll see this inline editing if you've turned it on. Transactional searches that are not restrictive enough will automatically turn off the inline editing. You will not have access to it. And you say, well, I got the memo field over here, and I should be able to edit the memo field without upsetting generally accepted accounting principles. No, NetSuite wants to protect your transaction integrity. It'll have an audit trail for everything. You just can't come in here and say, I like this guy. I'm going to change 5,600 to $56. Can't do it. It won't let you. Now, you'll notice that all the other searches will have full-blown inline editing. You'll have almost pencils on almost every single column, right? You'll just have pencils up there for inline editing. And inline editing in a search is great because it keeps track of the record. For those of you who haven't seen it, I'll show it to you in a customer search in a minute. But the point is that inline editing is going to protect you in transactional searches. It will automatically say, that's enough. I'm turning this off. You're going to have to do a journal. You're going to have to do a discount entry against it, a write-off. You're going to have to do something. I'm not going to let you do this. So all the fields are not editable inside of a transactional search result. Just keep that in mind. Now, the next thing is that I will stop and get back to the chat window. We'll kind of go through it. I just want to make sure we get to a right place. So I'm not ignoring the chat. I just want to get to a level where we can start talking about those as a group. Okay, so where we are is we got to the results of a transactional search. You can see the impacts of not making a decision on your mainline. Mainline defaults to either, and this thing would be worthless to me. I would tell you, you owe me so much money, and you really don't. And so when you edit your search, Now notice there's two choices there. Return to criteria is not going to bring you back to your full search. Edit the search will. It'll take you back to a small band of just criteria, results, and available filters. And I think transaction or translation. But if you want the full one, always use edit. Okay. And if you didn't use edit and you got to the short menu, just go up and it'll say personalize up here on one of your buttons and you can get the full menu. But always have the full menu when you're working in your searches. You need this. Okay, so what we talked about was criteria, results, and what I want to introduce to you now is highlighting. And highlighting is really simple. It really is. But actually, it can throw you a curveball. And that's all I want to teach you about was the curveball. So let me show you how you can get a curve. We'll go to highlighting. And what we're going to do is we're going to start playing with the amounts. And so we're going to say, for example, if an amount is going to be greater than, or equal to 10,000 or something, I want to see I want to see it highlighted a color. So I can say greater than or equal to, come in here and say 10,000, right? And so I want to do that. So I'm going to go in there and say that. Then make sure that once you're here, you don't leave too quickly. Make sure that you're off the line, that it's been added, then hit set. There's nothing more frustrating than coming back here and there's nothing in this field. You want to make sure you hit all your buttons on the way out. And then once you're here, I'm going to go over here and make this text color. Let's just say it's going to be blue on a yellow background. Okay, that's what that's going to be. Now, let me just show you one more real quick, and I'll show you the trouble you can get into and how to get yourself out of it. Let's go over here and hit this one more time, and we'll do another amount one. We're going to do multicolor amounts, right? So what we're going to do here is set this one greater than 100,000. So we'll come in there and say greater than or equal to 100,000. And we'll do that. Okay, now we'll go ahead and make sure the line's been off, set, it's in the box. We'll make this one Halloween. We'll do it black on orange. There we go. So we'll do that. All right, so now we have these set up. By the way, anything over here in the description becomes your legend description. So it'll say blue would be 10,000, whatever. So you could say right here on the orange one, you could say greater than or equal to 100K. And up here on this one, we could, for our legend, we could say greater than or equal to 10K, right? So we can do that. That's going to be our legends. Okay, so we come in here, we say okay to this. Let's go ahead and take a preview and let's see how it looks. So when we take a look at it, you're going to have some amounts that'll be highlighted. I should have changed the main line, but that's okay. You see some here, but look, it's yellow and blue and it's greater than 100,000. All right. And so as you look through here, yes, the ones that are 10,000 or greater are yellow and blue. That's what you want. But how comes greater than 100,000 was yellow and blue? Now, whenever you see this and you got multiple search criteria, it's really easy to fix. It's really easy to fix because what it uses is an alphanumeric code. So when you're in here, let me just explain the highlighting guy. If you would, imagine a little painter, right? A guy with his little bucket and paintbrush, right? And so what happens is you tell him to go and paint blue, all the ones that's over 10,000. So what he does is he goes out and paints everything greater than 10,000. It paints it blue. But this man's a lazy painter. He doesn't do things twice. So when he sees the ones greater than 100,000, he goes, I already painted you blue. I'm not painting you orange. So a lot of times what you have to do to get all of your colors and everything to work is that you're dealing with how it got interpreted. So sometimes, even if you don't understand whether the A comes before the 1 or the 1 comes before the A, all you have to, if you're doing like some things based on alpha, some things based on numbers, just come out and just move them and then just hit preview until you get your, I've had like 7 different highlighting criteria. And I think I moved it 3 or 4 times and got them all to work. But what it is you just want now that one is now orange, right? And so it's right now that it's correct. And it was just the interpretation order. Guys, just keep that in the back of your head. If you're doing some highlighting to bring out that information, just make sure that if you got them in the wrong interpretation order, the guy only paints once. Just remember that. Mumble that when you make a mistake. Just go, oh man, the guy only paints once. There you go. All right. So that's on highlighting. I just wanted to break that out for you. Highlighting is really easy to do. It's just that sometimes we just get mixed up with how it's interpreted. Now, we already talked about audience and roles. And one of the things I want to talk about right now let me go back to mainline, right? And just let me fix that. So I'm going to go to my criteria. I'm going to go down here to mainline, and I'm going to make it so that it's looking at the pay this amount line. Now this becomes a much more easier to read search. You're going to see something here when I go to preview, that all the lines now are single line documents. They don't have multiple lines in them. They're all line 0. See that? And now they're all asterisked. So you're only looking at that section at the top of the transaction that says pay this amount or this amount due or you are owed this much or whatever. That's what you're looking at now. Keep that in mind on your transactional searches. Okay, so we've done some highlighting, we've done some things like that. Now, you may have noticed that I have a Tableau icon. Let me just speak to that for a minute in case you notice that I do have that. And the reason I have that, it's done under enable features. You guys went up here, set up company, enable features. You got to be an admin to do it. And it's under analytics. You can say, I want to use Tableau. Just go under analytics tab and enable features and turn on Tableau. Now you say, well, why do I want to do that? One of the beautiful things about exporting to Tableau is some of you guys out there that are with me today, of the 250 of you, it's like, some of you remember green bar paper. Do you remember green bar? It's like we couldn't do a 30-column report with 500 rows without having green bar. And that was where we alternately shaded the horizontal row on the paper, right? So when we printed on it, it was real easy for us to follow across over to column 30 without going up a row or down a row. This will automatically, if you export it out to Tableau and open it, it will automatically alternate line shade. It's one of its features. So one line will be light gray, the next line will be white, the next line will be light gray, and it changes the font. The font is really easable, readable fonts. And the only thing I want to say about it, I don't work for Tableau. I don't work for, I know where my money comes from. I use it because I'm this gray bar on large row reports, 1,000 row reports and stuff like that. I'm this gray bar. And so, or green bar. And so I export it out to that and I look at it that way. I mean, there's a lot more you can do with it, but I just use it for my old green barring. And the reader is free, guys. All you have to do is go out and Google Tableau, and then download the reader. It's like Adobe. You could download a free PDF reader, or you can download a free Tableau reader. And it's really nice for some of your reports and exporting them out and have them grayscaled and stuff like that. It's nice. So it's just something you want to look for. I just want to mention that because sometimes that question comes into chat. Well, how'd you get that icon? And it was just under enable features. It does it for reports and searches. The other thing is that you'll notice that again, my inline editing is turned off. That's fine. It's going to stay turned off, and that's the way it's going to be. Now, before we go into my next area, which I consider us entering in pretty much intermediate areas coming up next, is I want to take a look at what we have in the chat and see what we got going here. So let me open the chat window. Let's see. Show totals is a checkbox, not a field result. Like some of the notes in here. Good to see you. All right. Workflow class. All right. So I'm trying to set up a report that has a vendor name, 1099 eligible, an amount we paid the vendor last year. That shows the last part. Does anyone have any? Okay, so you guys are sharing. All right. I tell you what, do you have access to? No, you don't have access to a Q&A window. If you did, is there an order you prefer in the criteria selections to maximize the speed of searches? Chris, what a question. Chris asked, is there an order you prefer in criteria, like how it's going to evaluate? What he's looking at is the SQL that gets generated when it does the record selection. And so I actually play around with that sometimes. The first thing that I do is like, did you see the order that I selected for transaction? What I do is I go out and hoard the record type in first, and then I have it execute all those that are in that record group as the status. And then the main line, I just trip at the end. It's funny that you asked that because that's exactly why I build the order that I do. Excellent question. Because if you really think about the select statements that's being issued against the database, is that you're going out after the larger one first, then your second criteria should narrow that larger one down. And that's the way you should look at it when you execute your searches. It generates better, more efficient SQL. If you don't, it's okay. Just set another 6 seconds. I know that seems like forever, but it's okay. It works. Great. There. All right. You guys are really chatting it up back there. So that's okay. I'll leave that. Let's go back to the food, back to the fun, back to the action. Let's go on back. And we're coming up on, we'll do a little break here in about, let's see, I started at top of the hour. So at top of the hour, we'll do a break for about 5 minutes. And so you guys If you need to, like you're worried about missing anything, I'll do a break here in just about 15. Okay, so let's go ahead. What we've got to is our intermediate part. We understand that we can print it. We can send it as an email. That's fine. We can export it out as a CSV. Guys, you will be writing searches. Let me just tell you this right now. You will be writing searches that what you're trying to do is circumvent mass update. See this list? Mass update, mass updates, update prices, mass updates. I teach this, by the way. If you guys have the LCS Pass, I teach 5 workshops a week on the LCS Pass. And so we have one coming up for admins that's going to talk about duplicate records, mass updates, those type things. Make sure you go into your LCS Pass, look for live events. Live events, don't go for that reported stuff now. Come on, catch the live guy so you can ask him questions, right? So go into your LCS Pass, and if you guys don't have it, contact your account manager about getting it. I mean, there's 50 webinars a week, to half an hour to 90 minutes, and you can just drop in and learn this stuff. I teach this stuff every day, live. So you guys might want to take advantage of that LCS Pass. Come on in and look at our admin one, and I'll be showing you stuff about how to create custom fields for your reports and things like that. But anyway, that aside, so I'm going to go back and we're going to kick it up a notch here. What I want to talk to you about is some other things that's very powerful about searches. And the problem is they hide it. Okay, they hide it. It's called email. And you think it's email, but it's not. It's not email at all. As a matter of fact, that's a side benefit. So if I come in here and say email, I can say specific recipients, and I can come down here and start listing recipients. There you go, easy for me to say. Now, the deal is, look at this. See this? Allow users to subscribe. What does that mean? Okay, so let's say this search really meant something, the IB demo 999 search. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to create, now I want you to picture this for a minute. You created a search that what you did is that you went out and did a sales order search. Picture that, type equals sales order. And then you said amount equals greater than or equal to 1 million. That's your search. So you did that search. Now, a sales manager is very interested in sales orders that come in that are greater than $1 million. Okay. So what you can do is write that search. It'll only detect sales orders greater than 1 million. And what you do is you come in here and say, send email alerts when records are created or updated. Now, I want you to picture this scenario because it happened. All right, the sales manager on Friday was out on the golf course in Florida. He was on 13th hole or something, I don't know. And so anyway, their phone started going grit, 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 right? And they were getting ready to go up and tee off, and they looked at their phone. And it said that Emma just got $1 million order. So immediately his club went under his arm, his thumbs got out, and he said, Emma, great job. Now you have to understand what this did to Emma. Emma just hit the enter key 30 seconds ago. And her manager's back at her like right away, you know? And so it was like instant recognition of things. And so you can set up searches that you don't run them. You don't run them. You create the search that has certain criteria in it that whenever it meets that criteria, it's going to add a row to the results, isn't it? So I want you to think about this a minute. Why do you have to come in every day and run it and check to see if anybody made it today? No, just have it send you an alert. Okay, so if you got your email on your phone, okay, you will have that alert. So no matter where that sales manager is, they can get back to their people right away. And approvals needed because some deal was just done that has a waiver in it, and you need to run the guy down. Alerts are great for that kind of stuff. You can set up searches that look for certain incident types, criteria types, things like that, and then say, okay, go up in the cloud, and whenever a record comes into the system that would result in being on this search result, then send me an email. Let me know right away. I want to know within 3 seconds, right? So they hit the enter key, bang, it comes in. Where else we use this, let me just show you, these alerts are really awesome. Where we use this also was I went out and did some work for a construction company. Okay, they built buildings. They were a commercial builder, and they paid weekly. Labor got paid weekly. So their time cards had to be in every Friday at 11 for them to be able to pick up their check at 4, right? And so what I did was I wrote a search that went over to Suite People where payroll is, and there's a checkbox in there that says time submitted for this period. And so I just ran a search that said, who doesn't have time submitted for this period? And then the results was the employee's name, the employee's email, the manager's name, the manager's email. And so I just came in here and said the recipients from this search are going to go out to the manager email and the employee's email. And then I went into schedule and I scheduled it for every Friday, right? So I said it was a weekly event. I scheduled it to go Friday. I scheduled it to go at 11 o'clock in the morning. So the time cards would come in, right? And so this went out at 11 a.m. Man, that's a quick one. Okay, so it went out every day, every Friday at 11 a.m. and said, you don't have a time card. And in case the guy was sick, then it went to the manager as well, so he could submit time for him. So the spouse could come by the office and pick up the check. So we never missed a check once this was implemented. All it did was it just ran this at 11 o'clock, sent it out to the people that didn't have a time card, told them, and I put a message in there because you can create a custom message from payroll, subject, missing time card. And I said, no ticky, no laundry. That's all I did. And that's it. There you go. And so, you know, it was amazing at 11:01, all these time cards coming in. It was just absolutely amazing. So you can do this. And you can also, instead of having a row get at it, you can say if a field gets updated. So you can say if the amount field was less than $1 million, but now it is $1 million. Like let's say you submitted the sales order and the guy called up and said, you know what, let's go ahead and take that other option. And so now it's going to push it above $1 million. Now that record's already been created. But again, if the guy went in and changed the zip code, I don't want to know that you changed the zip code. So sometimes updated isn't exactly what I want. It's like only when that field changes. So you're looking not at the zip code field, but at the amount field. And any amount field that was less than $1 million is now greater than $1 million. You want to send it. So guys, you want to look at this. Now, let's say, for example, you are searching for something that you get a lot of triggers through the day, but you just want to review it at the end of the day. Then go ahead and not send it according to alerts. You would send it according to a schedule. And then you could combine all those alerts into one email. So if you had $3 million deals that day, it would come in with one email at 6 o'clock or whenever you decided to schedule it. 6 o'clock every day, the email comes in and says, Emma got $1 million, Stevie got $1 million, Billy got $1 million, whatever. And then what if you don't get any results? And you're used to getting results. It's like, did nobody show up for work today? You can say send if no results, and you'll get at 6 o'clock a message that no record came in that met the criteria. So it really helps you stay on top of things. Guys, they hid this under email. This is all about alerts and notifications. That's what it's about. So you're creating searches that if that produces a row that you would like to know about, you just go ahead and set it up for alerts and then put your email in. Now, I'd mentioned to you that if you got specific recipients, you can always say, I'd like to allow the users to subscribe. So how does a user subscribe to a search? Let's say, for example, you do it because you want to know that your person's got $1 million deal, but the sales team saying, hey, can we have that search? We want to compliment Emma when she gets $1 million deal as well. And you go, you can subscribe to it. Well, where do you do that, right? So you do that under your personal preferences. You come into personal preferences. We'll just go there for a second. And so whenever you have a search that's going to trigger an alert, you can go out and subscribe to it if they want you to subscribe to it. So you come in here to your preferences again. You come over here to alerts, right? You go to alerts. You come down here and say that it's a transactional alert, right? It's based on a sales order or something. And then you come over here, and anyone that is published a search for you, you can do it, right? So I can do that ID search demo, right? I can do that, say that, and I can say send on update, so I get notified right away. And then also, if they change the record, I want to be notified of that too. So you can subscribe to people who do alerts and set up alerts. You can go out and check them out and subscribe to them. Right? And then that way you'll be notified on some of them. You probably don't want to look at them all. You'll probably see the alerts available to you. You'll just go execute the search and see if that's something you want to see. Guys, just come out here and look at them all. Look at the search, go execute it, see if that's something you're interested in, and go ahead and do that. but you really should be using this. This is incredible, is the ability to have this thing do alerts, wake you up, do whatever you need to do. And so between updated fields, between customized messages, between the scheduling, everything, your world can now rock and run off of just a bunch of searches that you have. You know what I'm saying? It's amazing. Okay, that said, the next thing is that if you are the owner of the search or whatever, you'll see audit trail, admin or owner, you'll see audit trail. This is where you get to go and see who has messed with your search. And now you know whose desk to go and stand in front of, right? You just go, what were you doing? What were you thinking? Right? So there you go. You can see whatever's happening in the audit trail. Now, execution log. Admins love the execution log. And the reason being is that the normal execution log has this nice little field over here that says, was exported. Like, you know, you just got your 2 weeks notice from Bill, you know, and all of a sudden you notice that customer listings are being run and exported. It's probably Bill, right? Exporting. Why are you exporting a list of our customers? Anyway, I'm just saying you can get up-to-date information about how many times. Admins also like this because they'll write a search that says, show me all the searches that hasn't been run by the January of 2019. And they'll find them all. So then they can send you an email based on the owner, and they could use a search to generate an email for you that says, you ran this search last in October 2019. Can I get rid of this? And that way you can get your searches cleaned up by using the execution log audit trail. And by the way, if you guys come into the administrator one, I'm teaching auditing and logging in about 2 or 3 weeks. Check your LCS pass and go look at when that one's coming up. I think it's coming up about the second week of February, I think it is, somewhere around in there. But you guys, I teach logging for you admins because logging in here has a lot to be, you could enhance it if you wanted to say that. And so I teach a lot of those enhancements. So you guys want to drop in on that. Okay, so there's your audit trail, your execution log, you have that. Let's talk about the check boxes. You got to talk about the check boxes. The 400-pound gorilla is in the corner. Okay, so we know what the public does. The public is your fast way of just saying my audience is not selectable, it's everybody. Now, what about available as a list view? What does that mean? Okay, so when you say available as a list view, what you're doing is you're saying that you like these results right here. These results right here, you love them so much that when you go out and do a list of invoices, this is what you want your list to be. All right, that's what you're saying. So what does that look like? Okay, so when you went up there and did that, right, we go back to the criteria and we take a look at that. So let's check the box. And so we check the box, we'll do that one. I'm going to go ahead and demo these as well. I'm going to talk about each one of these and so we can see how to use them. And notice, I will never check that box. Never check that box. I do it on purpose for a while, only so I can show how messed up that'll make your menus. You never want to add your save search to a menu. Just please don't. Just please don't. As a matter of fact, if you could modify this form right here, I would remove that using Suite Builder. Just take it off so nobody can ever do it. You just don't want that. The other thing is okay, let's go ahead and talk about these. I'm going to go ahead and hit a save. And now remember, it's called IB Search Demo 999. Okay, so let's go see what List View does. So I am in transactions and I am in a sales thing where I went down to my invoices and I listed them. Okay, so when I did that save on that, let me open that in another link. Okay, not you. I don't want to go to you. You got to go back. All right, here we go. You're going back. You're going to be a list of invoices. Okay, so here comes my listing of invoices. And notice that on a list, you get the opportunity to see the view. Now, what you're doing when you check that box, it says make available as a list view. You are now in a list view and you're making it available to come in here and say IB Search Demo 999. And so you are now saying this one that NetSuite gives me, I don't like it. See the memo field is editable there? Okay, so I come in here and I want to use mine. There you go. That's it. That's what we got now. So you have to be very careful. A lot of time, this is something because this is affecting anybody that uses this center, right, and has this role. And so, you're doing a selection for a lot of different people. You got to be careful of that. But some people will modify the default. So they'll just take the default and they'll modify it. And they'll just go up here and they'll have the default one. And instead of going and creating a search for it, they'll just come in and say, edit the view. And guess what happens when you come in and say, edit the view? It takes you to save searches, right? So you don't like default, you're just going to add a column or something. You can just go to customize view and see it takes you into searches, but it only takes you into results and filters. So whenever you find yourself in a position where it hasn't given you all your sub tabs, you can always find comfort in your more options button or your personalized button. They use two different buttons sometimes to get back. And then it gives you all of your stuff again. And now you're back in your environment. So that's what make available as a list view does, right? And so sometimes you don't want people taking that ability and changing the list view for everybody's dashboard, right? So you want to be that's why those boxes are here under roles. So you don't let people make it a list view for other people, right? That's what you're saying, because it will do that. All right, because it looks at the center you're in. So it won't affect anybody in the sales center, but it'll affect somebody using the accounting center or the classic center, because that's what you use, right? So you're going through here and you're talking about who can do this to their centers. Now, what else can you do? Let's keep checking these boxes, right? So we got this one, we got that one, make available as a sublist view, make available as reminders. We can do those things. And so let's go back to our transaction, our search results. Let's go into edit this search again. Now, we take a look, we've checked the boxes for sublist view. I'm going to do this one before I do dashboard. What does sublist mean? Let's say, for example, you are on a customer record. Now, sublists are always on different record types, right? So I'm on an entity record. So I'm on a customer record. You go out and take a look at a customer record here. And what I want to do is that I go in and look at this customer's transactions, right? So I'm on a customer record. I go into, I don't know, go into Bay Media Research. We'll go in and take a look at them. Okay, so you're saying you want to have the ability to put your search on somebody else's sublist. So you come in here to this customer form and you're coming down here. When you said make available as a sublist, now what I can do is go to sales, where my transactions will be, go to transactions, and you'll notice that NetSuite uses a default view. When you check that box, what you just said is I don't like your view. I want a different sublist view. And so I'm going to bring in the IB 999 or whatever it is, demo thing. There it is, somewhere in here. There it is. So I'm going to use mine because it has highlighting on it and it has all that cool stuff. And I want mine. And so you'll just bring yours in, right? And so that's what that means. You want to make yours available as a sublist, not NetSuite's. Okay. And you can always tell if it's indeed a sublist and not a form. Because so there's forms that have columns, right? But how do you know that's a sublist? You always know that a form is using a sublist when you have the new options. See the new invoice, new order, new quote, new cash. Whenever you see the new buttons appear, that means whoever designed this form, they used a sublist down here rather than using columns. Because on a transaction, I can add item columns, right? But I came in with a sublist instead. So that's really where you know the difference, whether you're looking at item options or something at the bottom of your record, or whether you're looking at a sublist out of searches, is you'll always have the new buttons. If the new buttons are missing, chances are these columns are just list columns, and that's all they are. And it's not actual live search that's controlling it. But this is where you can see the sublist. Now, last but not least, let me save the one for dashboard view. Do you know what that means? I want to make it available for a dashboard view. Well, let me show you what it means. Let's go back to the home dashboard here. And you know what? I'll keep that one. Cancel, and I'll keep that tab for a second. All right, so let me go back to the dashboard. And let's take a look, dashboard view. Now, here's what people think that means. And it doesn't mean it at all. So if you said you wanted to make it available for a dashboard view, that means you can go personalize, come up here to a search portlet, of which you got 6. You can add a search portlet. And now, because I said I wanted it on my dashboard, it's going to show up on this search portlet. I am sorry to say, everything shows up on a search portlet. I don't care if you check that box or not. It is not going to happen. When I come in here to a search portlet, it is heaven, bar the door, because you are going to see every single search that was ever curmudgeoned. You will see everything. There is nothing here. I mean, you're going to get them all, and you're going to find the weirdest stuff out here, and it's going to be a big problem for you. Anything can go into a search portlet, anything. So I can go out and I can actually go find that IB search or whatever else. Yes, it's going to be here somewhere, that IB search 999 or whatever. There it is. I can put it in a search portlet. But people, that's not what that box means. You can always do this. Let's just put up there, this is a search portlet, so we can see the difference. Okay, so now I got my search in a search portlet. That's fine. That's fine. It's good. Now notice what you're going to need. Your role's going to have the ability for you to be able to go up and do setup on this portlet, right? Sometimes people don't want to give that permission on certain dashboards. You got new sales reps, you got stuff. You're going like, hey, if you need a change, come see me. Something like that. We've arranged your dashboard. We published it. By the way, that's another admin seminar we do, is publishing dashboards. You want to go look for that. That's every month as well. The other thing is that when we're talking about this is a search portlet. You know what make available as a dashboard view does? Right here. Makes it available for a list portlet. You only get 2 of them. Do you ever notice that? So you got a list portlet. What is the difference between a list portlet? Because I'm going to go here and I'm going to show you, first of all, in setup, look, it does not allow me to pick a search. It says you can pick a search type. So what does this mean? So what this means is that I can come in here now and say that my type for this list portlet is going to be anything of transaction. So we're going to go look for the transaction. There we go. Now, here's what this does. I can say this is anytime you get result size, that's the length of the portlet when you open it, right? 10 rows it's going to show. And then if you have a search that has the pencils, you're going to allow inline editing. All right, so you hit save. Now, here's what it meant to do. Okay, let me get this out of the way. Here's what it meant to do. See this? That's what it did for you. It put it right in here. Now, what a list portlet allows people to do is stay inside the portlet and choose their results from a pre-selected list by checking that dashboard box. So not every search is here. Guys, it's not every search. It's only the ones of this type called transaction that I checked the box that said make available for dashboard view. That's the only ones that are here. And so a list portlet is for people that do not have setup control. So they can come in here and say, I need to look at an invoice paid search, right? So they can come and look at that without going into setup. So you don't have to give them full control of that. You can give them view, you can give them create or something like that, but they don't have edit, or they don't have delete, or they don't have setup, or they don't have any of those capabilities. You can give them their top transaction dashboards right here. So they just pick them. Down here, they have to know what they're looking for, and they have to go into setup to choose a different search. They have to go into setup to use a different search. You may not want to give setup positions for that. So search portlet, any search can run in it. You don't need a checkbox. You need to use list portlets because it gives them more flexibility to your users to be able to find other searches of that type. And so it's just something you want to consider. Also, the other thing is that I love the ability to collapse all this stuff. One thing about your searches is that if you want your dashboard to come up faster, take any of your search portlets or anything like that and collapse them before you go home. That way, when you come in tomorrow, anything that's collapsed doesn't take time to open. And that way you can spend the time a little later in the morning, just open them up, hitting the recirc on them, whatever you want. But the dashboard definitely comes up faster if you take your KPIs, your KPI scorecards, minimize them before you go home, and you'll see that your dashboards will enter much faster. Okay, let's continue with searches. But before we do, I want to take a 5-minute break, and we're going to come back and go into some more of the more advanced and intermediate concepts on these. So let's come back at let's see, it's 8 after the hour now. Let's come back at 15 after the hour, and we'll go ahead and get started, okay? All right. I was looking at the chat window while we were at break, and you guys have some wonderful conversations going on there. Yeah, the way it works is it puts a trigger. In other words, if you set an alert on a record type, right? Let me go back to sharing my screen. I want to show you guys a couple of things you'll probably want to go look at. For you guys that are interested in the you guys are interested in any more information on this alert stuff, for example, if you go to you should be seeing my screen. Is that true? You guys are with me?
Yep, we got you.
Okay, good. Sometimes I've talked for 30 minutes and finally somebody says, are you sharing your screen? Anyway, here we go. Enabling safe search in your help. Okay, so enabling safe search email alerts. This is the kind of like reading you don't want to do. So let me kind of shorten it up for you. Basically, your alerts won't go off. Do a CSV import that would add records to that search, or if you have web services turned on. So the first thing we would be concerned about that, right? This large import of records, and all of a sudden people are just screaming with all these alerts. It doesn't affect that. The other thing is that there's only certain tables that will work. Let me show you those. So if you go into email alert limitations, there's just really two of them. One of them is that show internal IDs, that column will be missing from your results. You have to go into the results and physically add it, even though you have it checked. So if you wanted to see the ID of the row, you would have to turn that on as a result. You would actually have to go and make internal ID one of your result columns. The other thing is when you start using things like my or my team in the filter, so you don't want to see across the subsidiary, you want to see just my team, that usually will bounce the alerts as well. The other thing is the record types for alerts is right here as well. So you can go in and see it's a large selection. Campaigns, case, contact, customer, some of these things, they're not available for all types. And so, then again, when you look at transaction, it's just not, you saw I was in transactions and it was there. It's just certain types. And really, it's certain types of these. It's not really the whole thing. You can't do anything on customer at all. There's never anything you can do. It depends on the columns you have, the rows you selected. That's really where the depth is. And so sometimes you'll see, well, it works for that one, but it doesn't work for this one. And they're both in the customer area and you're trying to figure that out. Sometimes, and there's not enough documentation on this, really. I've just very, very few times have I not been able to do an alert that I want to do. But it's just things that you want to be interested in your help process is going to be going over there. And as far as the number of alerts that I have set up for all my schedules and classes and stuff like that I got, I've never had a performance impact with NetSuite, and NetSuite's never told me to come and cancel some of my alerts. So I think you guys can really take this for advantage. Now, let's go ahead and we'll take the next steps that we want to start talking about. And the first thing I want to do is show you guys how to create a custom KPI. KPIs are so important. And the first thing I want to share with you is that if we were to go to help, right, and we were to type in standard, whoops, I'm sorry, guys, key performance indicators. Okay, if you type standard, this is really nice. This is a really nice thing, is that it shows you the over 100 standard KPIs that we have. Right now, remember, this works in the KPI portlet, these works in the scorecard, these works in the meter, these works in the trend graphs, these works on the dashboard tiles, I mean, come on. This is how you measure what's going on. And so you have all these, right? And the nice thing about this is it explains how they calculated days overdue. It explains the report that the KPI came from. So you can see how it's going on. Now, a lot of times we might say, well, we don't calculate average days overdue that way. We subtract out any holidays. We don't count them as overdue days. So I got to come up with a different formula. Well, that means you're going to come up with your KPI for average days overdue, right? So this isn't going to work for you. Or you've gone through here and you have not found a KPI that you use. Okay, so how do we make custom KPIs? Now, notice that all standard ones come from reports. That's because NetSuite has SuiteScript, and they're able to extract from a report to build a KPI. They scripted all that. They wrote in Java, right? So how do we get them? Well, we do them through searches when we want to do it. So the reason I told you this is so you don't go make one that's already out here. Go look at this and see if you're interested in any of these, and go ahead and use them rather than creating them. I don't know how many times I've seen people create a KPI for cost of goods sold. They're going, oh, that was out there? Yeah, it was already there. And so these also can be used in your formulas for your scorecard. Okay, they can be used in any of your formulas. These are actual labels of fields that you can use. And I'll show you that when we go to a scorecard. Okay, so you're going to make your own custom KPI. How do we do this? Let's go back to our saved transactional search. I would like to make a KPI. Okay, I want to see my recognized revenue on my one subsidiary, my Eastern one, and then I want to see my revenue on my Western one. So how do I get a KPI that's going to do that? Okay, so the first thing is there's 3 rules to a KPI. Get your pencils out. 3 rules to making a KPI. These are unbreakable rules. These are physics, right? This is thermo class, right? 3 unbreakable rules. Number 1, in criteria, you can have no date criteria. None. 0. 0 date criteria. Okay, so notice my fields down here. They are not date fields. The minute that I come down here and put any kind of date field in my criteria, any kind. So if I come down here and say, I want to put the date in, it's going to, this one. All right, you blew it up, right? Because a KPI needs to be entered into and said, what dates do you want me to go between? And so I want to compare last month to this month in my KPI. Well, then it has to go in and use available filters to get the date. If you already have it limited by a date, it can't supersede this date. So you wanted to see last month, but you didn't say the criteria included last month. So you blew up your own KPI. Rule number 1, no dates in the criteria field. That's rule number 1. Okay, we don't want that. Okay, so we're not going to do that. All right. Rule number 2, in the results, rule number 2, you must have one summary type, a summary type. It cannot be grouping. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to summary my amount. I'm going to come up with a KPI for the amount of sales. So I'm going to sum it. Notice that you got count, sum, minimum of my amount, the maximum ever of my amount, and the average of my amount. All these are usable except for group. You cannot use group in a KPI. Right? Now, so I'm going to just say sum. Now, I'm going to show you something that you can do, but I want you to be very clear on this. I told you one summary type. What if I come up here and say, well, I'd like to have a count of the invoices as well. So you say count of my invoice and sum of my amount. So now you got 2 metrics, don't you? Guess what? NetSuite's going to forgive you. NetSuite's going to forgive you. Which one of these will they use in the KPI? Right? They're going to use count. Why? Because it comes first. You getting this? So now I'm going to come up here and call this the count of paid invoices. Okay, that's what I'm just going to call it, count of paid invoices. Then you always should put KPI somewhere in it, at the front, at the back, in the middle. I don't care. Because when I am looking for searches that I'm going to use for my KPI dashboard tiles, I only want KPI %, right? I'm only going to look for stuff that has KPI in it. Don't show me your rest of your searches. They won't work. A KPI is a special search. Okay, so rule number 1, let's go back over them again. Rule number 1, no dates in the criteria. Rule number 2, result fields has to have one summary type. Now I'm saying this is going to be called count. Why? Because I know when I make it a KPI, it's going to ignore the second one. Now, if you guys are thinking with me, all I need to do after I save this is come back in and say amount of paid invoices and move this one above that one and save it. And I got a second KPI, don't I? Don't I? Okay, so well, let's look at this one. This is the count. Let's make sure I'm not lying to you. Now, the third rule, the third and final rule is that in available filters, you have to have a date. I don't care what it is. You have to have a date. It could be date closed. It could be date open. It's going to be date. It could be date challenged, date approved. I don't care. It's just got to have a date field. This is where your portlet is going to come in through the top of your search and set the row selection for which ones it's going to bring back, right? So it uses that date field there. You don't have to show it. You don't have to multi-select it. You don't have to do anything. Just add a date field. Now, the one thing I would say here in rule number 3, let me just get your attention. What I would say here in rule number 3 is that I would say, if I'm going to do an East Coast ABC and amount, and I'm going to do a West Coast of ABC amount, I want to be able to make sure that when I'm comparing the two KPIs, that I'm using the same date range. So when I make my East filter, right, my Eastern store filter, I'm going to say date. And then when I make my Western store filter, I am not going to say close date. I'm going to say date. You got to make sure apples to apples. So whatever date you do use in a KPI, if you have related KPIs, make sure you use the same date selection field. That when you're, so you can compare them apples to apples. All right, so we got date in there. So did we meet rule number 1? The answer is yes, we did. Did we meet rule number 2? We more than met rule number 2. And then rule number 3, I got available filter set to date. Now watch this. When you preview it, hang on, it will be overwhelming. People get these and they go, somebody broke this search. No, he didn't. This is perfect. Now, my KPI instrument is going to be smart enough to know it uses this one. It's going to be smart enough to know. This is the first one. Now, by reversing these results, I can make it a second one, right? So let's go and see if that is true. The number was 8,182 for all time. So we got this. It's saved. And what I'm going to do is go back to my home screen. I'm going to add the KPI portlet. So we add the KPI portlet. When we go into the KPI portlet and it comes up, we're going to add custom ones. Okay, so here's some standard ones. Those are the ones I showed you out of the box. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up here and do setup. Then I'm going to go to custom KPIs. Now, when you go to custom KPIs, you want to make sure that when you go to add custom, you can add up to 10 custom KPIs to your scorecards. So what I want to do is that I want to go and search for, this is why you want to put that in there so you don't have to go through 1,000 searches to find it, right? So I'm going to do that, hit my search. Now I'm going to have just my KPIs in here, right? KPI Eastern and KPI Western. Okay, I just want to show you that's where they actually go when you save them. I can do these. Now I'm going to go back. I'm going to go back here just for a minute. And actually, I could do % in front and get it as well. But the point is, I want to say is that's why I put KPI in the name, is so I can go out and find these once I'm done. Now we're going to add custom KPIs, but let's go back and finish the KPI first. I'm going to do one for the East Coast store, one for the West Coast store. So let's go modify that. So I'm going to cancel out of here for a moment. I'm going to go back to our search. And our search, I think, was custom transaction search was right. It was here a minute ago. That's my problem. I get too many tabs. Count of paid invoices. There we go. All right. So guys, here's what I want to do with this is that I want to make 2 on here. I want to make the count of paid invoices for my East Coast and a count for my West Coast. So I'll go back into my criteria. And when I go to my criteria, I'm going to go in and say that I'd like to add one more criteria to it, right? So I'm going to go into criteria. I'm going to add my subsidiary. I'll pick my subsidiary and say that it is going to be East. Okay, so it's going to be East, set that. Now this one's going to be East. I'm going to come up here, count of paid KPI. Let me move to the front just for giggles. And I'm going to do KPI East. All right. I say I got KPI East, count of paid invoices. I'm going to do this one. Now it's going to be the East. Let's go ahead and do a save as, since I changed the name. Save as. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back and make the amount one. Okay, so there you go. That's how many of the ones, so 8,000 came out of the East store. It was eight invoices. Okay, now I'm going to go back to edit the search and make yet another KPI, right? So I can go back and easily on this one, I just want to make this one now the amount. So all I have to do is go to results, and all I have to do is take sum and move it above count. So it comes in first. So as soon as sum comes in above count, I go ahead and go change my subsidiary, or I'm going to keep the subsidiary. So I'm just going to say this now as amount of East amount of invoices. Okay, so now I just created 2 KPIs for the East, right? I'll do a save as. I've just created a count and an amount. Now I'm going to do the West. So all I have to do to make 2 more is just come back into edit the search. You can see the sum of amount now is in the front and the count is in the back. And then I'm going to go back to edit this search and just do 2 more real fast by just changing. I'm going to make it the West, right? And so I'll come in there and say, keep that as the West. And then I'll come down here and change this to the West. And yeah, I made yet another KPI. And so we'll go to US West there. Whoops, just West. Hit that. And then I renamed it. And so I should be able to just preview it just for giggles, just to see what's going on. But I'm going to go ahead and do a save as just to make sure I captured it. We don't have to do it again. So I did my save as. Now, if we look at preview, it should be a different number. It should be the West, right? So we'll go up here and do a preview on it. And there it is. And what you're seeing is now the West had a count of 1,460 at this amount. So I'm going to make that one last one just by coming in here and saying it's still going to be the West, but I'm going to make it, I'm going to change that order. So this is the count of paid invoices. Whoops. Count of paid invoices, come down here into my results and just change the order on these. Put the count above it. And then all I have to do is hit save as. It's got the new name change. It's the count of paid invoices. Count is the first one. It finds. I go ahead and hit a save as. And now we have all those. Okay, so let's go back to our KPI portlet on the home page. And let's go add the customs. So when we come in and we say setup, all we do is go over to the custom and we'll add those. So we come in, add custom KPIs. And then we can do the search if we want to. And it finds these. And so now we can add the KPI East amount of paid invoices. We can add the KPI count of paid invoices, West. We can add all these brand new ones. We add them in there. Notice that the custom ones have a little C next to them, okay, versus the standard ones have a little question mark next to them. It's probably hard to see in the demo, but you can see kind of what's going on. Sometimes when I add them, rather than fool around in here with the comparison ranges, just to see where the data is, I'll go ahead and hit save. And then what I'll do is I'll go up here to my portlet date settings and try and get some numbers that mean something. So see in the date ranges that I'm choosing here, there's nothing. So it's my demo data. So I have to compensate for it. So let's just say that I compare this year versus last year. Now we'll do last year versus year before last. See if I got some data in there. There should be some numbers show up somewhere, I think, in those time periods. I don't think all the data is back in 2017. But I somehow test just to see. There was these counts. So the count was 1, the amount was 3,000 that much, and the count was 1 here in the current period for 1,000. And believe it or not, 3 years ago, I didn't have any data. But the point is that it is working. Okay, and it's my data that's bad, but you can make your own KPIs. Just remember the 3 rules. Number 1, no date and a criteria. Number 2, one summary of a count or an amount or something in the results. And rule number 3, a date in the available filters. And your stuff will start looking like a champ. And now you can start using these in all the portlets. The nice thing about the scorecard portlet and your searches are when you do a scorecard. Now, if you guys have not played the scorecards, you need to come. Every Monday morning, we do portlets. Every Monday morning on the LCS Pass, it would be 9 o'clock your time, Mountain Time. We do a portlet every Monday morning, portlet and coffee. And so we go over them. So if you ever wanted to learn how to do a scorecard, we'll teach you how to do it on Monday mornings. And so you want to come in and visit us. Now, the other thing is that customization, I would just, like I said, this is where you find scorecards, right? It's underneath center and tabs. How would you, what are you thinking? Why would it be there? But it is. And so you can go to a scorecard. And the nice thing about scorecarding, and the only thing I want to do is I'll just show you, I'll do a new one real quick. Let's say, for example, you take the sales metrics. And the nice thing about now I got an East Coast sales metric and I got a West Coast sales metric. right? So what I can do now is that I can come in here and you'll notice that you have up to 10 custom KPIs. And you can come in here and assign your custom KPI to these 10 in a custom scorecard. So when you put your 10 in, then when you go to add your KPIs, they're all under KPIs. So that's why you see custom KPI number 1, custom KPI number 2, and custom KPI number 3. When I built them over here, I gave them labels. So there's labels, so I understand what they are. This wouldn't mean anything to me, 1, 2, and 3. But over here, the labels will. I want you to notice something. I'm not here to teach you scorecards. I want you to notice something. In this one right here, I am taking KPI 2, comparing, which is what? The West. And I'm comparing it to KPI 1, which is the East, or vice versa. And then I'm doing a variance. You can't do this on KPI portlets. You can't do this on KPI meters. You can only compare KPIs in a scorecard. And so now I can see the variance between my East Coast store and my West Coast store, right? I can see the variance. I can do a percentage. There's all kinds of formulas for me here that allows me, if I go into edit, you would see I'd be able to do ratios, variances absolute, all kinds of things you can do. You can only do this in a scorecard, comparing two KPIs to each other. That is wonderful. Something else about a scorecard is unlimited date ranges. You can pick as many date ranges you want to compare as you want. As long as you want to scroll, you can do them. But I'm just saying, this is where your custom KPIs and your standard KPIs should be used, is in here, because now I can compare my KPIs. You know, you can't do this anywhere else, just in a scorecard. Okay, guys, that's how you use your Save Search KPIs, right? This is just one place you'd use them. I love this thing. Make sure you drop in on our Portlet teaching. It's only a half an hour. It's 30 minutes. Get a cup of coffee. Come in and sit down. Every Monday, a new Portlet, and we just break it to pieces, and we just tear it up, and we try to break it. So you want to come on in, learn about those things Monday morning. All right. So what I wanted to do was make sure I went over that with you. Now, the next thing is that's just one of the methods you can use those newly produced KPIs. They're only done in searches. Now, what I'd like to do is I'd like to roll over to another environment that's going to give us some examples to really crank this up a little bit. This is an environment that I use. Let's see, it's advanced searches. Let me find it again. There it is. All right. I'm going to log into another account. The reason I want to share this one with you, guys, if you have the LCS pass, you can go out and get this image. And the reason I like this image, did I go out and delete it? I didn't delete it. No, the reason I like this image, go back to the home page. I was showing somebody how you can set your landing page as a different dashboard. You don't have to go to home. Okay, so anyway, I'm going to go to dashboard. Can we get there? Thank you very much. Leave reports, and let's come back. It's slow. It's spinning up there. Come on, baby. We can do this. There we go. All right. Daylight's burning. Let's get moving. You guys have probably already seen your 2023.1. Let me share with you. There's this March, there's going to be a brand new reports and a brand new searches class. 2 days. You can take it through your LCS pass. Brand new, brand spanking new. So if you've taken it before, gotten your certifications and analytics or whatever, you want to go out and take a look at the new course in March. Okay, so we got our new release coming up. There's some really exciting things in there as well. Okay, so here's why I want to talk this image for you. If you do have the LCS pass, like for example, you've gone out to LCS pass and you've used it. If you don't have the LCS pass, you really should get it, because the live events will it's just anything you want to learn. Anything you want to learn. You can submit what classes you want taught, and we teach them. That's all we do. It's a smorgasbord. So when you come in here, the only thing I wanted to show you was how to get this environment. So if you have the company pass, what I'd like you to do is just come in here and search for Suite Analytics. When you come down here, you'll see some courses, and you'll want the advanced. I want you to look for the advanced save searches. So you see the Suite Analytics advanced searches. When you go and take that course, here's why I'm telling you this. Some of you might be saying, you're supposed to be teaching the searches. Why are you doing this? If you go here, what it's going to allow you to do is download this image that I'm working in, right? So this image that I'm currently in now, it's going to allow you to download this. And I want you to see this. They have published for you, already built, every kind of search example that you would need. Examples for intro to formulas, examples for formulas and functions, data type conversions, converting numbers to strings, strings to numbers, numbers to currency, functions and formulas, being able to use conditional logic, case statements, right? Being able to rank and understanding what dense rank is and what rank is, and then going through partitioning functions. This is where you want to rank by something. In other words, I want to rank by customer type equals retail. I want to rank by customer type equals wholesale. I want to rank, so you want to rank by something, rank by partition. You want to learn all this stuff. Functions ordered by, functions graphing functions, aggregate functions. That's where you get total. Total of people that are late with their bills, 17. You got that total. How did you create that aggregate? How did you get the total number of people in your search? So these type things are here. And a couple of them I want to point out to you as our time continues. There's just a couple of these things that are going to introduce possibly some new concepts to you. The other thing is that these are the demos that when I teach the 2-day class, these are the demos that I demo. So now you have them. The other thing that you have also is that you'll see that you'll have the advanced saved searches. So what I have there is it's not going to come over. Let's go up to the top. Come on, you can do this. You're not going to go for me, are you? Let's put you up here. Come on, get out of here. Sometimes this drag and drop thing really kills me. All right. Other times, just makes me mad. All right. So let me collapse this one. I want to open up the other one for you. And obviously, I'm having a case of the Tuesdays. So anyway, so let me open this other one up. These are answers to the course exercises. And so when you're doing the exercises in the course, you'll also have these. This image comes down to you for 90 days. You don't even have to take the course, just get the image, because it's going to give you the ability to see these samples and take them apart. Guys, I cannot stress this enough. I'd rather take apart somebody else's search and look at it and see what they're doing, right? Rather than me sit down and try to figure it out and read the user guide. So you got so many here. Let me just show you a couple of how important it is. Like, for example, if you ever see the HTML stuff, you can HTML format your results, right? So let's just go in here and take a look at one that people decided that they wanted to show some HTML. And you can use this in the results of your search. People don't use this very much, but it can really stand out and highlight some things. Now, the first thing I wanted to introduce you to this one to is the fact that it doesn't look like it does anything, but you really have to go and look at it. What I wanted to show you is NetSuite broke something in 2019.2. And that is, if you put HTML in your titles, they used to work up into 2019.2. And then in 2020.1, they didn't work anymore. And they didn't work in 2020.2. So I guess what I'm telling you is, unless you open a service ticket to NetSuite support, they do have a patch for this that will fix it, but you got to ask for it. Now, notice in the other stuff, let me go back and edit this search just to take a look at things. This is how I recommend you use this stuff. When you look at it, you can't find out very much. But when you come in, you'll see a lot of times the criteria is very weak. There's no criteria at all because they want a robust results. But then in the results is where everything is. And so you can see that all they wanted to do is take the name field and just keep adding a custom label to it to show you that labels used to work. You used to be able to do this and put in a custom label with HTML. You no longer can, okay? So just know that if you use it, it just regurgitates it and puts it back up. Now, however, if you're looking at for results, let me just show you this one just real quick. I just want to show you a couple that you might be interested in and point out some things to you. Now, here you can see that HTML took over. So how did they do this wonderful stuff? What was going on here to get all this stuff? What's actually happening? Well, you see the industry is in blue and italics, right? How did that happen? How did you get some of these bolded? How did you do these things? So if you go look, this is why I recommend it so much, is that it's easier to figure out if you just look at it. And so you come in here and you see that the industry type, everybody has an industry type. So you're not showing any records that doesn't have an industry. You're not showing anybody that doesn't have an order. And you're not showing anybody that doesn't have some kind of money as a balance.
So that's just to give you good data. That doesn't have anything to do with showing HTML. You can see in here that what you did was you put the bold tag on, you showed the entity ID, and then you had the ending tag. And then you just said customer in bold. Here you went into a style, right? And you said blue, and you wanted to take cust entity. Guys, this is my example right here. They did not use the ID field when they created this custom field. And so NetSuite called it cust entity 3. You know what it is? It's industry type. If they would have gone into the ID and said the ID was industry type in lowercase, that's what it would say here. And anybody that looked at this would know what the heck is going on. Use your ID fields, guys. Anytime you get to name something in ID, you name it. Don't you dare let NetSuite name it. And then you come on down here, you'll see that this one is easy to understand. You're centering and aligning the email. And then down here, you're taking the phone and you're doing decorative underline on the phone. And you can do these things here because you want to do red on a number. You have to convert it to characters. So they're doing to character the balance. So you can use HTML on it. HTML won't work on numbers. HTML works on text. So they did a to char to convert the balance number to text, and then they went ahead and colored it. So you can see that they're actually using HTML in the format. Now let's talk about some other things as time is flying. Let's go back to home and show you a couple other things that you would be really interested in looking at. How do you get aggregates? Like when you want to see aggregates or grouping functions and things like that inside your graphs, right? So how do you get these things? So sometimes you want to look at grouping, right? And how you do that. And so we can do like group functions and take a look at some of those. And so this is where you're going to be using some of these functions for being able to get subtotaling. So if I go out there, this is a report that's giving me aggregates. So it went out and counted all the people that are in the advertising media. It went out and counted all the people that were in computer hardware. So it's doing a row by row by row aggregation before it produces the results. And how are we seeing this count for each of these areas? Is that if you go in and edit the search, you'll see that what you're doing is a very interesting little technique. And so we'll go to the results, look at the criteria, it's just making sure we don't have divide by 0, and it's making sure that there is definitely no nulls in my industry type. And so we get good results. Now look at this, I'm using group. What am I grouping on? Industry type. And then what am I counting? The name. What did I also do? A minimum of the first entry they ever did, right? The first time they ever placed an order or when they became a customer. And then they got the sum of their balance. Then they got the maximum they ever had as a balance. Then they got the average. And so they're using all these. And so you're seeing they're using summary types. And so this is where you'll use those. It's a good example for those. And so we go back and look at the results. You'll see indeed that those summary types is what gives you the aggregates, right? That allows you to get the count of that for the industry type was advertising media. It allows you to do that, right? Using those functions. So I'm getting aggregates line by line. That's really something very difficult to do in searches until you know about how to go in and use the summary functions. Now, the next area that you would probably be interested in researching, we go back to our homepage, is that this is something that I don't want to leave you guys without. So I'm going to go ahead and do it so we have plenty of time in case you have any questions for it. And that is this one, transaction chaining. Oh my goodness gracious. Transaction chain is awesome. It's going to introduce you to 3 criteria fields or result fields that you've never used before, or you probably never even got introduced to. Now, transaction chaining is this. Imagine you saying, I got this sales order 195, and I want to know, did it come from a lead? And what was the lead number? Did it come from a quote? What was the quote number? Did the quote get converted to a sales order? Was it conversion, or did they redo a sales order? And then it just came from that quote. And then when I did the sales order, it went out and did an invoice. And then it also did 5 item fulfillments. And so what I want to look at is I want to look at everything that happened to this sales order before it became alive and after it. It's called transaction chaining. Take a look at this. So we're going to go in and see a transaction chain and what the results look like. Now you'll notice, I'm going to show you that what I did was in my criteria, I only went looking for one sales order 2075. That's why you see every line has that on there, because I said, I just want to see the transaction chain for this. Now I want you to look at this. It goes all the way back to where an opportunity was presented to this customer. And then that opportunity number was 1077. So you can drill down on it and see it. Then it said they were given an estimate, which was quote number 1025, which was created to make this sales order. All they did was they went into the quote and hit order, right? And it converted it to a sales order. Then once the sales order was created, it generated an item fulfillment ticket number 5. And so I can go look at it. It generated an invoice 0017. So there's probably some payment towards it or something as you're seeing these different references. You can go into each one and see what happened, right? So I'm looking at the whole chain of this one transaction from birth to death, right? I'm looking at the whole thing. And let me show you how this is done. It's done by 3 fields that you're not really told about. And so these 3 fields, let me show you what they are. Now you can see here, it's really simple. Notice that main line is any. Why? Because I wanted to also find the opportunity number. That's a record header, right? And I also wanted to find each time an item fulfillment was done. That's a line item. So I wanted to see both. And so I had main line is one of the rare occasions that I'll use is any. And then what you want to do is that you want to, I'm just looking at document number 275. You wouldn't. You might have a range of sales orders you want to look at, or a group of sales orders to a certain customer or whatever else. I just specified I only want to look at one sales order to do this. And then the type was set up was the order, the sales order. Okay, so you can see what I did for my criteria, why I'm only looking at 2075 versus more than one sales order. Now in results, let's go check out these new fields. See applied to transaction? Write that down. You want that one. Applied to transaction. See created from? You want that one. Created from. It's there. Believe me, folks, when you're doing a transactional search or you're doing anything that has a chain to it, a history, these things are there. And then you got applying transactions. See that? Now here's how I want you to think of it. Applied to means previous. I applied myself through the transaction. So that's prior history stuff. Created from is when you hit a button. In other words, I didn't just open up the quote and then change things and then save it and then copy it over to, I actually hit the button that said, take this order, take this quote and make it an order. And so when those occasions happen, created from kicks in and says, by the way, you created this from a quote, or you created this from a spreadsheet imported, or you created this from whatever, created from. Applied to is all the transactions in NetSuite that came in before this. And then applying transaction, that field shows all the transactions after the sales order. So between these 3 fields, you get the entire lifespan of a transaction, all the way through lead, all the way through prospect, all the way through quote, all the way through. So if you're doing Salesforce, or if you just want to just track, I got a quote that went to a sales order, that went to an invoice, that went to this fulfillment item. And that's all you want to know, because you want to look it up and find out the history. This is fantastic, my friends. And you have it. It's called transaction chaining. And all it does is make use of these 3 very unknown result fields. And you can get a lot from it. And so you can see there's no tricks to it. The criteria was just to make sure you saw the records. The only thing I would say, you might only have main line as any, right? And then your results had those 3 things in there. And then you could use available filters to put in a document number, right? So you could use available filters, put document number in there, and that way it's at the top. So you can go, I want to see the history of document number 578, right? And then it'll show it to you, right? If you put that in your available filter. So you can put document number in here, it'll be at the top, and you can transaction chain search for anything. It's beautiful. I love this stuff. This is just fantastic. Now, some other things, I know our time is coming up here and I don't want to overrun, but I do want you to grab this. I want you to go out and grab that course. If you're LCS Pass, just subscribe to Advanced Analytics. It'll allow you to download this. It'll give you the administrator account. You have all rights to it. You can play in here, break as much stuff as you want. I don't care. This is yours. You can do anything you want in it. So you don't have to have fear. Okay, one other thing I wanted to show you inside of that, in addition to that, that search, was sometimes you want to do matrix searches. Like, in other words, a matrix report where it's all aggregates. Let me show you this one. You guys really want this because you want to, in other words, I could take 2 days and show you all these and we could build them together, or you could just take this and just start looking at it. And so here they got all the different industry types. Again, that's a custom field, right? And then they got aggregation happening. How many in that industry, advising media, have 1 to 99 employees? How many have 100 to 200 employees? How many have 5? So now you're seeing in your industry how many big guys you got, how many little guys you got. This is a search, guys. How did it happen? How did you get this type of aggregation? Let's take a look. So we'll go ahead and edit the search and show you how you got these counts. And how you did them was really a wonderful thing. Notice that nothing's up my sleeve here. I'm just not looking for blanks. And then results here. Notice here. Look what I'm doing. Look what I'm doing. I'm going in. The formula is numeric. Why? Because the result will be numeric. And what I'm doing is that I know cust entity 4 is employee count, I think, or something like that. I don't know what it is. That's why, name them yourself. Cust entity 4 is, I think, number of employees. Okay, cust entity 4. So case, when the number of employees, when 1 to 99, then 1, else 0. Learn this technique, guys. This is how you get aggregation. So what it's going to do is go row by row through that field. And every time it gets 1, this 1 to 99 is going to tick mark 1. So you're over there making a bunch of stick counts, right? 111 slash 111 slash. You're just going down through there aggregating the ones. And then you sum them all up, right? So now I'm going to know it put a 1 in there for all my 1 to 99 employees. How many ones it put in there? It put 17. I sum them up. Now it's going to say I have 17 1 to 99 employees. Look here. I'm doing sum of case number of employees, 100 to 499. Make a 1, else a 0. So all it's going to do is tag 1, tag 1, tag 1, tag 1. Then I'm going to come back and sum it. Isn't that beautiful? Beautiful. All right. Then I go to the 599 bracket. Then I go to the 1000 bracket. This is how you do summary aggregation. You pick a field that you want to isolate on. When it meets your criteria, you give it a 1. When it doesn't, you give it a 0. Then you go out and sum up all the ones that met your criteria. Beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. People start looking at those search results and they go, how did you do that? And you go, it's just a bunch of case statements, 1 or 0s. It really literally is 1s or 0s, man. So you're out here and you're just doing this. And it gives you these wonderful, wonderful results. And they're called matrix searches or group functioning, right? And so you want to take a look at those. Guys, I can't tell you enough. I know we're up to the last 2 minutes, but what I hope I did today, what I hope I accomplished was, first of all, just at an entry level, anoint you guys to all these tabs and what they do. And we just walked across the tabs. That's all we did today, was walk across the tabs. The second thing that I did was show you the importance of alerts, and that email hides too much stuff. I got a bunch of searches out there that all they do is remind me. That's all they do. And so I use it like a religion. Okay. And I think as you guys get more and more into alerts and notifying people of things to do or situations that happen in your organization that people need to be notified of, you're going to be using this. The next thing I wanted to do was highlight how you could build a custom KPI, because I don't want you left to the ones the reports give you. I want you to be able to make your own KPIs for any metric that you want and be able to get that done. The next thing that I wanted to do was introduce you into formulas and searches. And again, I can teach a class just on formulas and searches, but I wanted to give you the help of getting this account. And so you'll have that account. You'll come in, it'll have these roles already assigned for you. So you'll be able to practice this multiple role types and see permissions and things like that. You'll be able to execute all these exercises. You'll be able to download the student guide if you want to have step-by-steps on the exercises. But folks, I can't say enough why you want to have access to every one of these as your example. Just take every one of these, look at your demos. This is what I demo when I teach the class, and this is what the answer solution to your student guides exercises are. And guys, I'll tell you, you will learn so much by this. And so I hope I was able to give you some information that you didn't have before, and it wasn't a waste of your time. Again, if you guys in the future ever want to, I'm kind of becoming a subject matter expert for analytics in NetSuite. So if you guys ever want a data warehouse thing, just reach out. I would love to be able to introduce the data warehouse to you. We can do that. Other than that, I think my part's done, and you guys can go on and seize the rest of your meeting.
All right, sounds good. Thank you so much, Ivy. Can you real quick just talk about how somebody might access the LCS or get
Sure.
an LCS pass? There's been a couple questions around that.
Okay. The LCS pass is a annual renewed, like a magazine subscription, right? That's what it is. The other thing is that you can just go to your account manager or whatever and say, I'm interested in the LCS pass. Now, here's the cool thing. The old one, you bought a pass, and the only thing you could do is let one person have access to all the volumes of data, all the live webinars, everything else. That went over like a lead Zeppelin, right? So what it is that they said, well, everybody in the company can do it. And they said, now we're looking at it, right? And so again, to get into the LCS pass, all you do is give your account manager, and they'll give you the URL for your account to begin to get into it. Now, for me, let me just share just real quick. I'm just going to take the share back. Oh, somebody else is. That's okay. But anyway, the point is that they'll give you the link to the LCS pass. You'll go out, and then you'll see live events, and you'll see courses. Courses is where you can get the live accounts, where you can get the demonstrations, where you can get all that. The live stuff happens every day. There's a course going on with 20 to 25 people sitting in it from all different companies from all over. Actually, I'm starting to pick up some UK stuff now because of the time zone. So anyway, you want to come into that because you got a live instructor. You can wait to the end when the Q&A comes up and says, you know what? I have been trying to do this for a month. Can I share my screen, and can you just go through it?
Sure thing. Yep.
That kind of thing. So you can do those. Okay, so I think that will do it for you. Thanks.
All righty.
Anything else?
I think that's it. Thank you so much, IB. That was a great presentation. I'm going to post the checkout code word again real quick in case you didn't catch it. There is the link for the CPE checkout in the chat window. The checkout code word is users. I'm going to leave that up for just a moment, and then make sure you hang around. We're going to have some tips and tricks from our board member, Mike Kackline, and then Mike will help us facilitate our open forum. Hang that out. And then, so once again, all of our meetings are recorded and posted on our website at rmnsug.org. So all of the recordings are going to be there. It takes about a week or so to get the meeting edited and put up on YouTube and then posted on our website. All right, so CPE checkout code going once, going twice. If the checkout code is not working, you can send an email, Amy, and we'll get you set up. But it is users. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing. At this point, we're going to turn it over to Mike Kackline. He's going to show us some save search tips and tricks. And I'll let you take it from here, Mike.
All righty, I will go. So IB, it's really hard to follow up on that. That was amazing.
Tough act to follow, yeah.
Yeah, it really is. So I think I got some that IB wasn't able to cover, and these are things that I've battle tested, like, oh God, how do you do this? So let me do a screen share here. Yes, screen 2. All right, can you all see my PowerPoint?
Yes, looks good.
Okay, cool. And I don't remember how to get it into full mode. Is that like F11 or F5 or something? Where do I go?
You go to the slideshow tab and then hit present.
Let's see.
From beginning.
Present from beginning. What the hell is that? Is it right here?
The far left.
Oh, from beginning. Thank you. Cool. So a couple of them. So this is what I'm going to cover super quick, but these are things that, again, I'm just kind of battle tested. So first off, when you make search, and any of y'all who've heard any of my presentations, you know, I'm a big fan of using global search in NetSuite versus navigating the menus, because that's a lot of mouse work, but I'm more of a dev type. So if you do a search colon in global search, it will just pull up searches. It typically anything you've created or anything that is a public, you know, anything that you have access to. So that's the first tip, is search colon in the global search, and then start typing stuff and you'll see them show up. Second one, so everybody here who uses searches has had this problem. Like, I just need to search for journals, and I just want one row to show up per journal, and I use mainline true, and it still shows every journal. Why does mainline true not work for journals? So IB, you know, you can definitely chime in here if there's some tweaks to this one, but it took me so long to figure this out. What you want to do is a type equal journal and line sequence number equals 0. This is how you will get a saved search with one row per journal. There are some caveats to it. I will admit that, like, you know, like for instance, an amount of journal is always 0 because the debits equal credits. But if you just want one row per journal with other criteria, this is how you do it. So the trick there is the line sequence number. Row num, this is another great one I've learned, is I run this search and it creates like a zillion rows and it takes forever to run. I just want, you know, the top 10, the top 1,000 or whatever. If you use a formula numeric in your criteria of row num, so the formula should be row num, and then you say less than or equal to 10, this will give you just the first 10 rows, or, you know, whatever number you want. And then this one is a little more advanced, but I want you all to know it's possible. And if you look at these two slides, you'll and just kind of be like, I don't know how this works. It just works. Then definitely feel free to steal it. So the question here is, I've got a journal that has a memo, and the memo is, you know, memos are just memos. And I want to cherry pick out a certain value out of the memo, and I want to stick it into its own column in the search. And that's super valuable, because then if you export the search to CSV, you can do grouping and pivots and all kinds of magical stuff in Excel. So that if there's anything you take home is, yes, that is possible. It is possible to cherry pick values out of memos and put them in their own columns. And how do you do that? This example here, you'll see the memo main has this Oracle invoice colon quote blah, you know, Oracle order quote blah, and then you see the columns called Oracle invoice, Oracle order, Oracle receipt. So how did I do that? I did that through these column definitions. There's a magical function in NetSuite called regexp substir, and regex stands for regular expressions. So most of you are not developers and don't know regular expressions, but I want you to be aware that these are possible. They're extremely powerful for cherry picking things out of memos. And these two slides here are a really good example of how you can do that. So the other thing worth noting is, if you create memos, which I think everybody on this call probably will at some point in your career, make sure to use memos, you know, line memos in your journals that a machine maybe could parse out. So be consistent in how you do things in your memos, because somebody could come behind you, that somebody could be you, to use this regex substir and cherry pick things out of your memos so that they can create a saved search with columns that pick values out. All right, that's what I got. I try and keep it short and sweet for tips and tricks. So saved searches in IB's excellent presentation, hopefully plus on that.